When at dusk, a terrified woman runs for her life from a creepy guy. He keeps promising he won't hurt her until she hits a dead end and he stabs her. Blood pours from her chest as her wig falls off, revealing a shocking secret. The victim was actually a man. Fuming with rage, the attacker turns savage. He strikes again, spilling hot blood everywhere. Suddenly, Saku wakes up in a sweat. That phantom blood still clings to his memories. Shaking it off, he turns on the news. The reporter announces they found the body of a serial attacker with over 10 victims. Every target was a young woman. Later, Saku discusses his upcoming graduation trip. The receptionist smiles, telling Saku he should make the most of his remaining days of freedom. Soon enough, he'll be trapped in company life. Saku mentions a cafe he read about online. He really wants to check it out, but he doesn't know its exact location. She tells him Tamahira Cafe sits right at the summit of the steep mountain. It is a brutal climb, but she warns him the owner's daughter recently passed away. The place has been closed for a month, meaning this hike might be a waste of time. Saku doesn't mind, deciding to just treat the massive climb as a good workout. The receptionist sighs with envy, wishing her own lazy son had half of Saku's drive. When a man walks in, Saku immediately covers his nose from the awful stench. This is Kaido, her useless son who spends all day doing nothing but taking photos. Saku tries to ignore the mother's loud scolding and the heavy suitcases flying around. Dodging them easily, he listens to the mother yell at her son to get a job. Kaido doesn't say a word, just grabs his bags and leaves, awkward to say the least. Saku checks his phone and realizes Kaido is the photographer for his next job. Cold rain pours down that night, but Saku keeps tailing the smelly man. Kaido suddenly trips, begging for mercy as Saku drags him toward the cafe. He throws Kaido inside, right in front of a young girl's memorial shrine. Kaido used to take creepy secret photos of this girl, keeping some for himself. He also sold them online to make some easy cash as his secret side hustle. When Kaido acts utterly confused, Saku coldly reminds him of his disgusting online leaks. The victim couldn't handle the public humiliation and tragically ended her own life. Kaido defends himself. He only thought Saku was the woman's boyfriend. The guy was simply hired by her mother, the cafe owner, to bring. Kaido here, what happens next? Not his problem. The pale owner finally appears. Silent as a ghost, handing the payment over to Saku, he takes it. Without a word and leaves, completely ignoring the screaming crowd behind him. Rain pours, Saku pulls up his hood and starts walking, but then the storm gets worse, forcing him to turn back. Thankfully, a bus arrives. The doors slide open. A man leaps out, cheering like a madman. That the door actually opened, miracle he calls it, Saku ignores him and boards the bus only to freeze. There is absolutely no driver here, still. An automated voice announces departure, repeating over and over for Saku too. Sit down, the automated broadcast grows chillingly cold and creepy with each repetition, but Saku refuses to budge. He just stares in absolute confusion. Stunned that the other passengers act like a driverless bus is completely normal. Bald passenger sitting nearby quietly warns Saku to just obey the system. Shocking electricity surges through Saku's feet, making him jolt in sheer agony. Stunned, he quickly realizes this painful shock must be punishment for disobeying. He scrambles to find a seat before another shock hits him. The current vanishes instantly, as if it never even happened. Just then, the brutal leader steps forward to take command of the bus. He warns everyone that this particular vehicle follows its own deadly rules. Rules for the dead. He presses a sharp blade right against Saku's neck. Trembling, Saku quickly nods and promises to follow every single order. He acts terrified just to stay safe, but deep down it is all a show. He is playing the weakling to study this bizarre, creepy ride. He quietly leans over to ask a bald passenger for some quick answers. The man explains this bus travels between the surface and the underside. The surface is normal, but the underside is a nightmare of endless blood. Once you board, you travel deeper and deeper, descending stage by stage into darkness. Every single stop is crawling with monsters you must fight to survive. Apparently, everyone on this bus is running from some terrible sin they committed. Hearing this, Saku acts panicked, claiming he is just a normal student. An old man behind him scoffs, warning him not to trust that thug. He claims he was just a simple, honest farmer who did nothing wrong. Yet he still somehow ended up dragged onto this cursed, miserable vehicle. His wife quietly adds that she was simply following her husband when chosen. A young couple snickers nearby, whispering that the college kid is doomed. Saku stays silent, reflecting on the lives he has personally taken. Sure, he has killed people, but only targets who escaped real justice. In his mind, eliminating criminals does not count as a punishable sin. The bus rumbles forward until the speaker announces their terrifying destination. Lake Tsukiyomi. The old farmer panics instantly, screaming that monsters are coming. The leader brutally punches the old man, dragging him outside to serve as bait. Suddenly, a mysterious girl appears right next to Saku, whispering a warning. She says that following the leader blindly is a fast ticket to death. Saku plays the coward, but trust me, he is already planning his moves. He aims to look completely helpless while remaining useful. The woman orders him off. Get moving, she warns, or you will end up as nothing but monster food. Saku hesitates. Suddenly, a pale, creepy hand presses flat against the window glass. Screaming about a ghost, Saku flees the bus. The leader just smirks, calling this the beginning. The woman approaches the trembling boy, mocking him for crying so easily. She asks if he is truly just a soft college kid. Saku snaps right back. He asks why she even cares, which immediately ticks her off enough to swing. Saku dodges easily, but quickly fakes a clumsy trip to hide his skills. She is highly suspicious but lets it go, telling him to keep moving. Meanwhile, the leader ties the screaming old farmer upside down near the lake. They are using the helpless elder as live bait for the monsters. Another passenger explains they will use heavy explosives to blow the beasts up. The dangling old man keeps crying out, screaming that he wants to live. He begs them, offering unlimited money, but the ruthless gang ignores his cries completely. He just laughs. Money is totally useless in this world. The old farmer couple hesitates, clearly tempted by the offer, but pure fear wins out. Saku watches, silently wondering if he should actually step in, when a loud crash cuts through his thoughts. The farmers immediately panic as nightmarish monsters appear. The bald leader tosses explosives to everyone, yelling to throw them once the beasts get close. Saku catches his bomb but does not fully get how it works. Meanwhile, the creatures swarm the entire clearing, closing in on the hanging victim. Suddenly, the old man freezes in terror. He recognizes one of them, the beast. Steps forward and introduces herself as Shimano. She has been waiting for this moment. Because he bled them dry, the terrified man stammers that they took their own lives, but Shimano does not care. Her claws dig deep into his flesh, making his agonizing screams echo through the dark. She takes his blood and paints her own face, transforming one side back to her beautiful human self. The old man keeps shrieking that he never personally hurt anyone, but Shimano reminds him that he stole the very essence of their lives. The scoundrel argues that he only took their money. Blood had nothing to do with it. He even complains that these beasts are breaking the rules since he never laid a finger on them, but Shimano reveals that after the factory explosion, this monster of a boss stole her husband's compensation money, driving him straight to his death. He might as well have taken their blood himself. Now Shimano rips away one of his cheeks, determined to bleed him completely dry. The other ghouls begin to creep forward as well, and Shimano reminds him that he ruined countless other lives who now want revenge. Back then, this greedy boss told his guards to ignore the desperate protesting workers, demanding their pay, but he had to slam on the brakes when they blocked his car, begging for the factory explosion compensation. They needed that money desperately to cover all their critical medical bills. Shimano herself was there, crying out that her husband's body was horribly burned over 70%, even showing the medical certificate, but the old man coldly dismissed her, claiming they were just waiting on company approval. Shimano begged, explaining the hospital was demanding immediate payment, but the old man drove off without a care. She chased his car until she got a call. Her husband had swallowed a lethal dose of painkillers and died right there. Shimano was utterly shattered, knowing exactly who caused this tragedy. In her despair, she hanged herself. Now those monsters are tearing the old man apart, his agonizing screams filling the air. The farmer is shaking with terror, but his wife whispers to stay completely silent. Saku watches this gruesome justice unfold, realizing the old boss truly was a wicked sinner. Saku wonders if those scary rumors were actually real. Suddenly, the bald leader orders everyone to move, and they rush toward the swarm with explosives ready. The gangster couple warns Saku to stay back since these bombs pack a massive punch. They get closer to the feeding frenzy, throwing their bombs straight into the crowd. The resulting explosion is massive, sending Saku flying through the air. He coughs through the thick smoke, only to spot a monster lunging directly at him. With the absolute precision of an assassin, Saku instantly slices the beast to pieces. Clean dagger cuts. Saku feels pretty disappointed because he expected a much tougher fight. The leader approaches, wanting to know if Saku actually finished the creature. This baddie couple scoffs. There is no way this pathetic-looking guy did it. Saku quickly plays dumb, acting terrified as he explains what happened. He claims the monster got caught in a blast and just landed there. They totally buy it, telling Saku to search for the old farmers. Saku is genuinely surprised they want to help, but the woman laughs, calling him way too naive. Behind them, the leader inspects the corpse. Something feels way off. An explosion could never split a beast so perfectly in half. Still, they start searching. They search the area for a full hour, but the farmers are nowhere to be found. Furious, the leader curses, convinced that the cowards ran off and abandoned them. Saku wonders if they died in the explosions, but the leader explains the game rules. Once the area is clear, every survivor must board the bus, or it simply won't budge. These doors only open when the stage is cleared. If shut, they are alive. Since they must be wandering somewhere outside, the group has to track them down. The couple complains that it is a total waste of time, with enemies constantly respawning. If they keep fighting forever, they will run out of weapons and stamina. But the leader tells them to quit yapping, move out. So the squad heads past the outer wall. Right then, Saku catches a sound. That loud noise means the monsters have already spawned back in. Another round begins. The thugs swear to teach the old runaways a hard lesson. They march deeper into the quiet fields, but something feels a bit off to Saku. He asks if the stage really reset, since the entire area seems way too peaceful. This bad couple immediately warns him not to let his guard down out here. Further down the path, they cross paths with an old man carrying a heavy axe. She snaps, asking what he is staring at. The elder calmly replies. He explains that another elderly couple showed up at his home, desperately begging for food. The gang immediately realizes these are the exact runaways they have been searching for. Asking for confirmations, the leader demands to know their exact location. The old man nods, explaining that they are currently resting inside his house. They apparently kept crying about being separated from their main group. Leading the way, the elder mentions he does not believe their strange story. The leader casually plays along, agreeing that it was probably just a wild bear. Saku follows silently, noticing that this village and the old man feel surprisingly real. Nothing makes sense. He wonders what kind of twist is waiting for them next. Their guide leads them straight to an incredibly ordinary-looking house. But let's be real, in this crazy game, normal usually means danger. Just then, a young village boy starts whistling right at the batty woman. She gets furious, but the elder tells her to ignore him since the kid is crazy. Warnings mean nothing to her, and she promises to end the kid next time. Inside, the old man shows them the way, where they find the missing couple. Welcoming them with delight, the old farmers seem relieved to be found. The leader sighs with relief, seeing that these helpless seniors aren't a threat. They pretend they were so worried, even though they were the ones who fled. Soon, the old host brings out some hot tea. Dumplings assuring everyone they are not poisoned. Still, the starving group hesitates. But the old Haramoto couple dig in, praising the kind villagers. Right then, a massive, heavy guy rushes over to grab the food too. The old man instantly snaps at him, scolding his terrible manners. But the greedy boy snatches them anyway. His father apologizes, explaining his son is a bit slow. He apparently takes after his mother. Seeing this, the others finally dig in. They are just incredibly relieved to eat something besides stale, canned food. Saku takes a bite too, figuring if the son is eating, it is safe. The leader plans to leave immediately after eating, but the host stops them. He insists they spend the night, warning them about the pitch-black darkness. Wild bears and wolves roam these woods, leaving tomorrow at noon is much safer. Right on cue, a terrifying roar echoes from the deep forest. Shaken, the leader asks Saku for advice. Saku asks if they even have enough ammo. If their firepower is low, staying inside is their only real option. The leader agrees. Soon, he and Saku fall fast asleep. Meanwhile, the tattooed couple is busy getting intimate in their room. But a creepy shadow at the window startles them, sending them rushing outside. They catch the peeping Tom red-handed, and it is the old man's massive son. They beat him relentlessly, but the creep just mumbles that the girl is gorgeous. The furious tattoo guy raises his fist to strike again, but the old man quickly intervenes. He tells him to send the lady back inside so they can resolve this. The tattoo guy follows him to a back room, finding the Haramoto couple there. Without blinking, the old man demands to buy the guy's girlfriend. The Haramoto couple chimes in, calling the tattooed girl trashy and worthless. They tell him to take the cash and find a decent woman instead. Now the sick trap makes total sense to him, and trust me, it is horrifying. Exposing them only makes the old Haramoto couple furiously gaslight him. They sneer that he is no saint, while the father keeps pushing the cash. He points out the guy is a wanted criminal who desperately needs money. Snapping in pure rage, the tattoo guy crushes a glass and storms right out. But the moment he opens the door, the fat son smashes a wooden stool over his head. He beats him bloody, while the three old monsters watch in cold silence. The Haramoto woman demands 200,000 to keep quiet in front of the leader. The old man argues the price was 150,000. But they remind him the leader is sharp, any little mistake will ruin them all. With the boyfriend out, the fat creep sneaks into the sleeping woman's room. Wearing a filthy grin, he covers her mouth before she can scream in sheer terror. Morning comes, and the Haramoto couple frantically knocks on the leader's door. They falsely claim the tattooed couple packed up and ran away overnight. But the leader is skeptical. They would not abandon the group like that, especially since they knew the bus would never leave without them. Saku agrees, smelling trouble. Together, they go to inspect the empty room. The old man sighs, lying that they probably left after an argument with his son. He acts deeply concerned about the wild bears roaming the dangerous woods. He promises the whole village is already searching, so they should be found soon. A local runs up to them with news, claiming they just found some discarded clothes. Apparently, beasts left them behind. Saku instantly recognizes the fabric and the bloodstains. But the leader suddenly grabs Saku by the collar, ordering him to look down. They must pretend to search for clues because this village is incredibly dangerous. Normally, when guests go missing, you would alert their companions first. Instead, these villagers ran off to search immediately. Saku realizes it is a setup. The leader praises his sharp instincts and quietly maps out their next move. They realize Lake Moon Village has no monsters, only humans, which is way creepier. The Haramoto couple puts on a sad show, but it is totally fake. Both Saku and his leader can tell these two are siding with the locals. The leader loudly announces that since their friends are dead, they must head back. But the Haramoto couple insists on staying behind to search for the bodies. Out of nowhere, Saku pipes up and says he wants to stay too. The leader furiously grabs him by the collar again, but Saku stands his ground. He claims he would rather live peacefully here than go back to fighting beasts. Enraged, the leader throws him to the dirt and boots him. He steps on Saku, arguing that staying is pointless with two people already dead. Saku counters that the tragedy only occurred because those two wandered off alone. The leader questions the old couple, and they decide to stay as well. Disgusted by their choice, the leader simply turns around and walks away. Later, Saku assures the three old folks that he will protect them. Relieved, the elders start promising to find him a good woman to marry. Eventually, Saku gets so incredibly drunk that he starts loudly snoring. The old men chuckle, remarking that it feels like having a grandchild around. At midnight, Saku lies sprawled on his bed, then suddenly snaps his eyes open. Grabbing a flashlight, Saku sneaks around and hears a noise near the cellar door. He knocks softly and a muffled voice answers. Saku pries the door open. Inside, he finds the tattooed girl tightly bound and locked away in the dark. The girl immediately tries to scream, but Saku hushes her as he works. He rips the tape off her mouth and asks what happened while untying her hands. She whimpers that Haramoto and the others tried to sell her to a creep. Saku warns her that she is being too loud and covers her mouth. She is stunned that a seemingly weak college student possesses this much strength. Saku quietly asks about her boyfriend, but she has no idea where he is. She assumed he was still with the others. Saku suddenly pieces it together. Those blood-stained clothes they found in the mountains belonged only to men. Suddenly, the old man peers down, so Saku instantly grabs the girl. He grips her neck, mockingly asking if he looks cooler than her boyfriend. The old man chuckles, warning Saku that this girl has a fiery temper. Calling the old man father, Saku assures him he can easily handle her. Terrified, the girl realizes Saku is in on it, but he quickly whispers. He tells her to play along, while loudly commanding her to behave. The elder laughs and walks away, letting the young man have his fun. Saku apologizes for the mess, but she forgives him since he helped out. Saku explains that escaping at night is the only way out. Meanwhile, a woman. Knock out the old folks. Saku rejects that, not that simple. This place is a replica, a complete copy of a real-world village. Their collective unity is incredibly strong, moved by day and every villager. Turns against them. In an unfamiliar land, they have absolutely zero leverage. She then asks how her boyfriend and the leader fit into this plan. Saku tells her that Haramoto and the others get picked up tonight. Since they actually want to stay, as for her boyfriend, he is already finished. Hearing this, she completely loses it, demanding a real explanation. Saku explains that the village chief and his family are likely the culprits. Who tried buying her. When the boyfriend refused, they resorted to extreme measures. The woman fiercely curses Haramoto and his schemes she cannot even fathom. That human trafficking exists in a fantasy world like this. Suddenly, she rips her own clothes, shocking Saku, explaining they must fake an aggressive struggle to avoid suspicion. Saku eventually leaves her looking completely battered. Seeing her, the old man praises Saku for going completely wild. Saku casually replies that he only wanted to show off his manhood, walking. Through the village, he spots a woman desperately screaming that she is sane. Yet the villagers ruthlessly beat her, claiming she is having another crazy episode. The crying woman catches Saku's eye. Her feet are bound in heavy chains. Trapped inside a tiny cage, the villagers recognize him as the old man's adopted son and bring up the tattooed woman he just bought. Since he stays silent, he quickly plays along, boasting about his new toy. They all laugh, but deep down, Saku wants to slaughter every last one of them right there. That night, the Haramoto couple serves up dinner. Saku offers a hand, but sneaks a secret ingredient into the bowls. The three old-timers sit down to eat, so Saku urges them to dig in. While he feeds his brother and the woman, they greedily dig in, praising him as a beautiful child. Then reality hits, very soon. Agonizing stomach pain and extreme dizziness take over. Meanwhile, Saku and the woman slip out. He whispers that their leader is waiting at the main entrance. The angry woman wants to burn this whole vile village down first. But Saku reveals he already poisoned their meals with the leader's drug. Those old-timers will be dead shortly. Now they sprint toward the outer wall. Suddenly, the fat kid blocks their path, screaming for his wife. He shoves Saku down. The loud crash instantly rouses the sleeping village. Cursing their awful luck, they watch the heavy brute lunge directly forward. But Saku easily tackles him, slamming the giant into the dirt. Grabbing her hand, he bolts, but local villagers spot the escape and begin chasing them. Saku cannot believe these are the same friendly folks from earlier. Suddenly, the running woman trips and falls, begging Saku not to leave her. As the angry mob closes in, they find absolutely nothing. She is gone. Confused, they scatter to search. Saku hides with her, but she suddenly panics and runs off alone. A villager spots her and screams, so Saku quickly silences and knocks her cold. With others closing in fast on the noise, he must act. Saku urges Eri to hurry. As they flee, a sudden cry for help stops them in their tracks. Saku immediately starts picking the lock, leaving Eri to wonder how a mere college student learned this. He knows such a trick. They step inside, but Eri instantly covers her nose from the foul stench. The smell is horrific. Crouched in the dark corner is a traumatized woman, muttering that escape is impossible. She believes she can never leave. Saku consoles her, reminding her that she called him for help. She looks at him, insisting he is a stranger, before admitting that she does not belong here either. She introduces herself as Mo Ida, explaining that she is actually a graduate student from Nanka University. Completely broken, she weeps that there is no way out and begs Saku to contact her father. Saku quietly nods in understanding. When she asks for a lighter, he hands it over without hesitation. As they prepare to leave, Mo sparks the lighter, staring into the flickering flame like it is her only hope. Meanwhile, their armed leader waits patiently at the village entrance, ready for any trouble. Angry villagers quickly spot them escaping. Instantly, Saku's allies draw their weapons to fight. They tell Saku to stay hidden, assuming a college kid has no business holding a gun. Eri charges straight ahead. The moment those firearms are drawn, the hostile crowd instantly panics. As they scatter, Toji asks how the mission went. Saku calmly tells him that the villagers are doomed. Specifically, Haramoto and his cult will perish. Eri cold-heartedly smiles, believing they got exactly what they deserved. If they love this wretched village so much, they can rot here for the rest of their lives. The furious villagers scream back, swearing to tear Mo limb from limb once she is found. But when they arrive at her cell, they are completely shocked to find the heavy lock broken. They scramble inside to drag her out, only to be instantly blinded by a sudden, raging fire. They desperately try to extinguish it, but the massive blaze quickly spreads and traps them all inside. Mo watches them burn, deeply satisfied to witness the absolute destruction of this wicked village. On the outskirts, the three old elders crawl in agony as the pursuing flames catch up. Trapped in the heat, they can do nothing but scream and beg for mercy. Houses collapse. Heavy boulders crush them. As they perish, their ghostly souls detach from their charred bodies. These lingering spirits find their way to Saku's bus, bringing a dark presence with them. Suddenly, their sinister past begins broadcasting. The Haramoto couple were actually human traffickers. They sold innocent young girls to vile, disfigured old men. Humans truly are scarier than ghosts. Following the horror, Toji explains that they have successfully cleared Kazuki Station. If Saku ever surpasses Toji in points, Saku will take over as the team's new leader. They find it highly suspicious that a student who cannot shoot has 50 points. Curious, Saku asks if some points are kept hidden. Toji confirms that hidden points exist. These secret scores will soon reveal themselves. A stage score is the combined sum. It includes public and secret points. The maximum cap is 100 points. Only extraordinary actions yield extra. Eri chimes in, reminding them that hidden points are incredibly rare. To her, they are basically irrelevant for a weak college kid. She explains point redemption. They can exchange points for vital supplies. Everyone trusts their leader to manage the group score. Toji receives 20 points, Eri gets 30, and Saku gets 50. He figures it is for prior damage. The chaos he caused early on paid off. Eri approaches him, assuming he scored lowest. Saku plays along, simply telling them to take care of the next steps. Saku browses the shop. He notices an intriguing option, 10 points by 2 minutes of real-world contact. This brief connection operates through a random occurrence. Saku silently confirms his deep suspicions. He realizes that everything in this bizarre underworld is a distorted mirror of reality. The leader reiterates a grim truth: only criminals from the real world end up here. Eri grimly remarks that everyone stuck here must be a criminal. She mockingly asks if Saku is scared of punishment. Saku completely ignores her. Instead, he offers a deal. Eri stares, convinced he has completely lost his mind. 2 whole minutes of outside contact. To her, it sounds absolutely insane. She quickly reminds him that getting help from the outside is strictly impossible. Toji agrees. He tried it before, but nobody out there could ever locate them. No tracking, yet Saku stubbornly spends his points to call Mo Ida's parents. The call connects. Shockingly, her parents instantly write it off as a prank. Saku introduces himself as Mo's friend. Still, they refuse to believe him. She vanished 10 years ago. Saku gently tells them she is never coming back. Instead, he asks if they remember the Mount Unzo fire from 3 years ago. It happened deep in the mountains, in a village with 0 safety measures. Everyone in that village died, but Saku reveals a dark, hidden truth. They were running a human trafficking ring. Talk about a deeply twisted reality. They actually bought college students for just a few 100,000 yen. The parents finally connect the dots. Mo started that fire, but why? Why can she not return? Saku solemnly explains how she burned to death. She died with the village. Still, he passes on her emotional final words. She loved them. She wished to be their daughter again in her next life. The old couple breaks down, weeping with a mix of agony and relief. Final closure. At last, they remember both her cheerful life and tragedy. The line goes dead. Saku quietly wonders how much longer this will continue. These real-world horrors need to stop. Maybe this side holds the answer. Right away, Eri calls him an idiot for wasting points on anything else. Points are for supplies, not sentiment. She sneers at his useless nerd brain. He studies too much, only to screw up when survival actually matters. Saku snaps. He asks if she has absolutely 0 compassion in her heart. Those scenes played out on stage. Eri just glares, hating his moral superiority. Toji steps in, warning them to chill out and stop the internal bickering. But Eri refuses to stop. She suggests using Saku as simple bait next time. After all, an idiot who cannot handle a gun is useless for anything else. Toji cuts her off. Saku's brains and pure guts cleared the last stage. Saku was actually useful. Toji tells them to save their energy for later. The next stage is starting. They must buy only the bare minimum gear. Use public points wisely. Meanwhile, Yuri feels incredibly smug about her food. She secretly used her private points. Once again, she mocks Saku's choice. A classic naive student move, throwing away valuable points for a stranger. Saku hits back. Did she fail her college entrance exams? She keeps talking. He is a student, yes, but he spent his points exactly how he wanted. That completely ticks her off. She raises a fist, ready to strike him down. Toji stops them right as the bus halts. They have arrived. Next stage. The doors open at Seika High School. Everyone warily steps off the bus. Toji hands out their gear. Each bag holds a gun, 6 bullets, and a knife. A lone figure approaches. The group immediately tenses up. They prepare for a horrific monster, but it is just a normal guy. He looks completely ordinary, calmly announcing that the game is about to begin. Classes, the trio freeze completely, but the man only frowns at their blank stares. He immediately snaps at Saku for wearing casual clothes, even though. Ironically, Saku actually looks the most normal out of the three. Ari snickers, but the man glares at her next, telling her to wash off that fake tattoo. Sticker, she looks ready to start a fight, but Toji stops her before things get worse. They quietly follow the man inside, eventually stopping in a quiet classroom. Everything seems completely normal, but Ari leans in to remind Saku that the last village looks safe too, so they need to stay on guard. 3 empty desks wait for them and they sit down, trying their best to look like ordinary students. Saku and Toji open up their school books and find them totally fine, but Ari starts shaking. Every single page of her textbook says the word die. It is scrawled in deep blood-red ink. Her hands shake violently. Cold dread washes over her. When school ends, Toji figures this trial is specifically targeting Ari, which is why only her book is cursed. Terrified, Ari desperately points out that they have been a team for so long and begs them not to use her as monster bait. She is way more useful than that. College kid, but Saku coldly replies that loyal teammates matter way more than raw power. She is trapped here because of some terrible sin from her real life. Something she never actually atoned for. Ari goes pale, but she still tries to deny it. Saku warns her that she will never beat this state unless she confesses. Even their leader coldly tells her she is on her own now. Ari panics, crying out that Toji saved her before, but Toji flatly replies that if the system rules did not force them to stay together, he never would have saved her life back then. In this world, survival is all that matters. When Ari grabs his shirt in absolute desperation, Saku steps in and asks her to tell the truth so they can save her. Still stubborn, Ari glares and demands to know why. The college kid is not the target since they are literally in a school. Saku looks at her with icy eyes, demanding an explanation about the notebook. He tells her directly. Humans are foolish creatures who never want to admit their sins. Pretty cold, right? Then Toji adds that if she were actually innocent, she would not be trapped here in the first place. Ari's face twists with sheer terror and denial as she finally stammers that it was not her fault. Ari walks back into the school like any normal student, but her face completely betrays her. She is absolutely terrified. Still, she desperately tries to convince herself that she is not the target this time around. Everyone looks completely normal, so maybe this entire trial is meant for someone else. Maybe those other two, but watch out. Before she can even finish that thought, a hand grabs her from behind. Her heart nearly stops from sheer panic, but she realizes it is just a friendly classmate reminding her about their meetup tonight. Ari just looks lost until other girls join in, hyping up their weekly ghost story night held every Wednesday. They promise snacks and lots of fun, playfully pushing her to join them. Later that night in the dorm, the girls sort through their things and gather together right in the middle of the room. Ari just stays on her bed, keeping her distance in absolute silence. When they invite her over, she claims she needs to sleep early because she is feeling sick. The girls do not push her, but they beg her to listen to just one quick ghost story before going to sleep. The rumor is about a second-year student from class 3 who supposedly wanders the hallway at night. Word is she took her own life there, and since then, both teachers and students completely avoid that corridor. One girl asks how the storyteller even knows those details when nobody is supposed to talk about it. The storyteller just smirks, bragging that her own uncle is the vice principal, meaning she knows everything. She then describes how the dead girl's body was covered in sharp blade wounds before she died. Apparently, that is why her spirit returned. The others shiver, realizing she must have been heavily bullied, and wonder who did it, thinking the culprit might walk these same halls gives them chills. After all, everyone knows the ghost of a tragic victim is always the most terrifying kind of all. Listening to them, Ari suddenly freezes. Her face goes completely pale as she realizes who they are discussing. Deeply buried memories start clawing their way back up. Piece by piece, she remembers what she did. It begins with a group of girls cornering a classmate and dumping filthy water on her. Naturally, Ari is the ringleader. She aggressively yanks the poor girl's hair and demands she spin around 3 times and bark like a dog to get forgiveness. The victim flatly refuses to do something so degrading, which does not sit well with Ari at all. She whips out a sharp razor, pressing it right against the girl's face. The other girls panic, begging her to stop, but Ari's icy stare shuts them up instantly. Even then, her friends try to reason with her, arguing they have already scared the girl enough to keep away from Tiger, but Ari just grinds her teeth, pointing the razor at them, asking if that is their final decision. When they refuse to help her, she snaps and chases them off. The terrified girl tries to run too, but Ari grabs her and slashes her arm, drawing bright red blood. Pulling her hair, Ari prepares for more. But the girl gasps that she will report this to the teachers and police. Ari just laughs cruelly, sneering that her father owns the co-group, so nobody will care. She even mocks the girl's deaf parents. That nasty insult finally makes the victim snap. Blinded by rage, she shoves Ari, and during the struggle, the blade cuts Ari's arm. Seeing her own blood, Ari loses her mind entirely and begins beating the girl. Suddenly, a teacher bursts in to stop the fight, but Ari quickly twists the story, blaming everything on the innocent victim. Soon, both of them are dragged to the principal's office and ordered to write a reflection essay 20,000 words long. The victim desperately tries to explain she did nothing wrong, but the corrupt principal blames her anyway, claiming it is her own fault for getting bullied. Once their parents arrive, the stark contrast is immediately clear. The principal greets Ari's wealthy father with a warm smile, but the man looks highly irritated, telling her to make it quick since he has no time for this nonsense. Meanwhile, the bullied girl signs to her mother that she is okay. Watching this, Ari looks at them with pure disgust, muttering they probably did filthy work to earn their money. Suddenly, Ari's furious father grabs her tightly by the collar. Enraged that she caused him embarrassment, he declares she will no longer stay at the school dorm, promising to discipline her severely back home. Meanwhile, the principal ruthlessly expels the victim without a second thought. Falsely claiming she attacked a classmate with a blade, the girl tearfully protests. It is completely unfair, but the cold principal explains that Erie's wealthy parents run the powerful co-group, meaning absolutely nothing can be done to help her escape this mess. She even instructs the poor girl to sign this terrible news to her mother. Heading home, Erie's furious father keeps on harshly scolding her. He only worries about their family reputation, but she stubbornly refuses to admit she did it. Infuriated, he violently grabs her hair, yelling that she is totally worthless. Erie snaps back that he only cares about her little sister, the child of his new wife. That comment strikes a massive nerve, and he immediately slaps her right across the face. He threatens that without his company's reputation, he would force her to apologize publicly. Still, Erie just clutches her cheek, whispering that his concerns are completely fake. Just for show, he does not care about her. He puts on a fake display of concern only to protect his company, not her. Look closely. The next day, she arrives at school, desperately trying to act normal. But before she can even take a single breath, Erie and her gang drag her away. Trapped in a corner, Erie glares with a twisted smirk, saying this is not over. The victim reminds her that the teachers and parents already know about the abuse. Erie just laughs it off, remaining as incredibly smug and arrogant as ever. She asks if any of that actually matters to her, pulling out her razor blade once again. Eri handles it like a simple toy, completely ignoring the girl's threats to report her. She stays totally confident, boasting that even a massive scandal would not affect her. Her father is the incredibly powerful chairman of a massive, prestigious corporation. With his money, there are endless ways to force her out of this school. Eri lines in pretty close. She whispers a dark threat that will change everything. She warns that the girl will be trapped, living a miserable life with her deaf mother. The girl pales as the cold razor is pressed tightly against her cheek. A thin line of fresh blood begins to drip. Absolute terror completely fills her. During class, a boy sitting nearby notices her strange behavior and asks if she is sick. He wonders why she wears long sleeves in this heat, offering some medicine. She insists she is fine, but suddenly Eri and her crew appear at the door. They knock lightly, they flash that same sinister, terrifying look. The bullies motion for her to come outside. The girl's hands begin to shake. She slowly stands up and quietly follows them out, leaving her deskmate watching with deep worry. He watches her go silently. Soon, his anxiety begins to grow pretty quickly. She has been gone for way too long, and when she finally walks back inside the room, the girl looks completely beaten up, her uniform messy and her hair in ruins. Her eyes are totally hollow. She hides behind her textbook, praying nobody notices. The extremely concerned classmate asks if those girls did this, suggesting she tell their teacher. She lies quickly. She claims she just accidentally scratched herself. Before the worried boy can ask anything else, the angry teacher suddenly throws chalk at him. The whole class bursts into laughter. He stands up to explain the situation. But the girl quickly interrupts him, lying that she just went to get some cold medicine. He gently suggests that if she feels that sick, she needs the infirmary. She really should not try to handle this incredibly painful situation entirely on her own. After class, she walks home, profound exhaustion etched deep into her face. But her daily nightmare continues, and suddenly, a strange blonde boy appears out of nowhere. Eri's future boyfriend grabs her, dragging her along by force and shouting. It has been a while. Snapping from pure frustration, the girl slaps him. Hard across the face, furious, he snaps and grabs her by the neck. Tightening his grip, out of nowhere, her deskmate rushes in, shoving him away. And warning him to never lay a hand on a woman again, the blonde boy threatens. But the deskmate shoots back that he is actually looking forward to getting arrested. He drags the girl away, telling her she must always fight back. If anyone tries to hurt her again, later, Ari meets up with the blonde guy, who is still fuming. She stands before him, completely calm, telling him to give up. On the girl, because she already has a boyfriend, the blonde guy just sneers back, asking if she came to mock him, but Ari just smiles coldly, promising revenge. She reminds him that school rules are incredibly strict about student relationships. Rules mandate expulsion, then she plays her hand. A photograph showing the girl and her deskmate standing incredibly close together. The next day, her furious mother storms the school demanding answers. The principal explains that as a prestigious academy, dating is strictly banned. She acts sorry for the girl because of her great grades, but she points out her performance has been slipping badly. Honestly, this principal is completely brutal. She drops even worse news. The boy is already expelled. The girl protests his innocence. But the principal points out the damning anonymous photo that was sent straight to the office. She claims she could have saved her if others had not seen it. But the school board saw it too. The girl snaps, unable to take it. She runs out of the office. Later, the students gossip normally. Suddenly, blood-curdling screams of terror echo through the entire building. Students stumble backward in horror, staring up at a hanging body. Meanwhile, Eri is busy wondering if she should tease her future boyfriend again when she hears the terrified screams of her friends. She turns around, completely lost until her heart stops dead because there hangs the pale, blue-tinted body of the girl she Once tormented, swaying gently in the air, now Eri desperately tries to convince herself that none of this nightmare was actually her fault. She blames the principal, the homeroom teacher, even the victim's deaf mother, absolutely anyone but herself. But when the ghost of that same girl appears before her, Erie's cold bravado crumbles completely. Her face drains of all color when confronted by the horrors of her past. Erie clutches her head, shaking and screaming, while the other girls suddenly burst into laughter. It was nothing but a sick prank. Furious, she flips them off, cursing under her breath. As she scrambles out of the bed and storms right out of the room, the girls snicker, whispering that she is totally losing her mind over a completely harmless joke. Running down the long, dim hallway, Erie mutters that everyone in this school has gone completely insane. She stops inside the restroom, desperately trying to calm herself down and convince her mind that this whole stage is not targeting her. She insists she had absolutely nothing to do with the girl's death. It must be for Saku. Determined to clear her name, she decides to talk to their leader in the morning, but as she walks back, a chilling sound echoes through the empty hallway. The metallic scrape of a razor blade being pulled out. Suddenly, the dorm rooms vanish, leaving behind a single endless corridor. Panic kicks in and she sprints. But her foot catches, sending her crashing down just as the lights begin. Flickering out one by one, trembling, she curls up, hugging herself tightly and squeezing her eyes shut. Then come the slicing cuts, sharp and quick. With the warmth of blood dripping down her arms, her scream rips the silence, startling her roommates, who wonder why she is so terrified over a simple prank. Ari keeps screaming, shouting that she did not cause anyone's death and that she is innocent, but her roommates with ghostly twisted faces stare at her, asking if that is really true. Her mind blanks and she collapses. When she wakes up the next morning, she is back in her bed. For a second, she thinks it was just a nightmare until she sees the marks carved across her arms. Suddenly, the door slams open. Her father storms in. With the principal absolutely furious, she did not wake up when her roommates tried. Ari tries to explain that no one woke her, but the principal insists that three people could not all be lying. Her father's temper flares and the sound of a sharp slap echoes through the room. Later at PE, her father berates her, accusing her of hurting herself just to disgrace their family. He declares he is taking her home immediately. When Ari snaps back in frustration, he silences her, saying she has humiliated them enough. Honestly, this father has zero sympathy. If this mess hits the news, their reputation is ruined. Everyone watches him drag her away, tension thick in the air. Her roommates whisper to the others that Ari screamed about a ghost last night and was covered in cuts when she came. Running back, they add that no matter how much they tried, she would not wake up in the morning. Some think academic stress has finally broken her mind, while others worry she might actually hurt them next. Watching this chaos unfold, Toji concludes that this stage is definitely targeting Ari. Saku wonders what happens now that she has been taken home. Toji explains that the school always goes on break Saturday afternoon, and everyone is expected back in the dorms by Sunday. He scolds Saku for still not understanding how the rules work. Saku laughs awkwardly, admitting he is not as sharp as the leader. Toji warns him that mindset will get him eliminated, but Saku just shrugs, saying he will manage somehow. After school, Toji checks in with Saku about the supplies and the location. Saku assures him that everything is packed in his bag and that he got the location when he told the teachers he needed to drop off some homework. Soon they arrive at a fancy mansion, and things are getting weird. Toji suspects it is just another stage illusion. Soon, an attendant leads them inside, where Ari suddenly appears, desperately pounding on the glass, trying to get their attention. Ari keeps pounding on the glass desperately, but someone suddenly pulls the curtain shut, cutting her off from view. Saku notes that she got hurt, though Toji is not surprised. This stage is clearly targeting her in particular. Saku wonders if Ari actually lived in such a Fancy villa with servants in real life, but Toji doubts it. The attendant politely tells them to take a seat before leaving to call the family head. Moments later, Ari's father arrives, his expression stern and composed. Saku introduces himself as Ari's classmate, explaining that he was asked by their. Saku delivers her homework, but the father is completely shocked to see Toji too. He questions Toji's presence. Saku quickly defends his rough look. He insists Toji's grades are actually solid, and he is even their sports representative. The father clearly does not buy it, coldly ordering them to just hand over the homework and leave. Outside, Toji mutters in frustration about how the man's sheer condescension was practically dripping off him. Saku agrees, maybe Ari was just looking for a real family connection. Because her father's coldness left her empty inside, but deep down he knows. Ari chose her own dark path, leaving absolutely no room for sympathy. Toji tells Saku they will make their move tonight, since they finally have her location. Saku glances up at the dark, curtained window one last time, silently, deciding to follow Toji's lead. When night falls, Toji scales the high wall with slick ninja precision, leaving Saku to tumble clumsily right behind him. Embarrassed, Saku promises he'll train next time Toji mocks his awful landing. As they sneak even further in, Toji tells Saku to stay outside and blow the whistle if anything happens, since he plans to rescue Ari himself. Watching Toji scale the building so effortlessly, Saku realizes there is absolutely no way. This guy is just an ordinary high schooler. Suddenly, shouting erupts inside. Ari's father is screaming at her for hanging out with unusual friends. Saku creeps closer, peering through the window, and his stomach instantly turns. He sees her father gripping a leather belt, while Ari trembles on the floor. He lashes out at her for skipping school, getting cheap tattoos, and being a complete disgrace to the family, striking her again and again. Then, in pure rage, he grabs her neck, snarling that she should go back to her addict father if she wants to cause trouble. Ari thrashes violently and accidentally knocks a glass vase off the table, shattering it loudly against the floor. The noise draws Ari's mother and younger sister running in. Her sister pleads with their father to stop and runs to help Ari, but Ari, shaking and furious, shoves her away, sending her crashing to the floor. Both parents immediately rush to the younger girl's side, leaving Ari glaring at them with pure contempt. Her father snaps that she has zero gratitude, especially after her sister got hurt trying to protect her. Her mother coldly adds that such behavior is expected from the daughter of an addict, with venom in her tone. Ari mockingly agrees, admitting her sister is the golden child while she is nothing but a failure, a drug addict's daughter. That stings her parents even more. They yell that they never asked her to get recommendations for a top university like her sister, but she could at least stop interfering with their family business. The younger sister looks uneasy, worried about how bad things have gotten, but her mother quietly promises she will talk to the father later, ushering her out. Watching this nightmare from outside, Saku finally understands why Ari was so obsessed with the idea of him being a prestigious college student. Her sister was brilliant and adored, while Ari was constantly overshadowed. Her rebellion was her only way to scream for attention. Just as this realization hits Saku, he hears a strange noise and looks back through the window. Eyes widen in horror. Ari has just ended her adoptive father's life with a broken shard. Laughing like a maniac, she screams her victory. She is finally rid of him, even if it is just in this underworld. Then she runs. She flees the mansion, leaving chaos behind, while Saku and Toji sprint after her. Toji catches up and mutters that Ari has completely lost her mind. His tone is cold. He warns Saku that she either boards the bus with them or she dies right here. Her sanity is irrelevant now, but suddenly the ground beneath their feet shifts. The earth turns unnaturally soft, swallowing Ari instantly before trapping Saku and Toji. They are stuck, sinking deeper by the second. Saku forces himself to stay calm. He realizes this is like a swamp, acting like a non-Newtonian fluid. Escape seems impossible. Saku screams at Toji to lie completely flat on his back to distribute his weight. Move slowly, Saku warns. Toji actually follows the advice. It works. He is impressed. Toji asks where Saku learned that trick, and Saku mutters it was a college class. They scramble back up onto a solid wall and quickly shout for Ari to follow them. Saku tells her to move slowly, but before she can even take a step, disaster strikes. Dark, ghostly hands burst from the muddy ground, grabbing her ankles and pulling her under. Ari screams and begs for help, clawing desperately at the mud, but her fate is sealed. This is the price for her sins, and she is gone. Then a single arm bursts up. It claws at the air, as if cursing her, dragging Ari down to hell forever. Multiple pairs of hands grab Ari, pulling her deep into the earth with them. They drag her down into the dark abyss. She sinks deeper, completely vanishing from sight. Meanwhile, Saku and Toji make a run for it. They cannot afford to look back. The monster got its wish, and now this entire dimension is tearing itself apart. They must reach the bus right now, or the collapsing world will swallow them too. A single slip and they are dead. Now watch closely. Fortunately, the bus is right ahead, but the collapsing ground is hot on their heels. Toji seizes the moment, stepping right on Saku's shoulder to launch himself forward. He yells that selfishness is survival, but Saku is not going down like this. Saku draws a dagger, slashes his own arm, and uses the momentum to leap. He jumps high over the sinking earth. He barely makes it. Toji is visibly shocked that Saku made it, despite his heavily bleeding arm. Saku plays weak, muttering that he was just lucky. Safe inside, Toji shrugs it off. He comments that this stage was incredibly easy, meaning the rewards will probably be garbage. Saku replies he is just glad to be alive. Toji scoffingly sets him straight. He warns that resources become vital once you survive a few of these rounds. Saku uses some purchased medicine, and his bleeding arm heals up almost instantly. Toji is definitely not exaggerating about the importance of these basic supplies. Saku realizes that keeping Toji alive is his best chance at making it through. This ruthless guy is the key to understanding the insane mechanics of this world. Toji continues explaining how the bus operates on its deadly routes. The system automatically fills empty seats at the next stop to maintain a headcount. Right on cue, the bus screeches to a halt for new players to board. Saku did not even notice their departure, but he wonders if he can escape now. But he doubts it. Toji would have run long ago if escape were that simple. Since Toji is still sitting here, Saku knows escaping this nightmare won't be easy. Saku sits back down. He decides to stay quiet and observe for now. He has absolutely no idea what kind of brutal penalty awaits if they break any rules. 3 new passengers board. Sutomu wonders where this vehicle is actually headed. His son, Takuma, instantly complains about their remote detention center destination. He hates this remote setup, while Ryo grumbles his precious time is far too valuable to waste stalling. Toji welcomes them warmly and demands quick introductions. The newcomers are taken aback, but Toji boldly announces that he is their leader. Starting today, warning them that anyone who disobeys his orders will die. Takuma quietly pulls his father down to a seat, choosing to completely ignore this weird guy. But Ryo refuses to ride with a lunatic like Toji and demands to get off. Toji warns him to sit tight or face a penalty, but Ryo still demands to leave only. To find that there is no driver at all, suddenly the speakers activate. The announcement warns of a penalty, ordering everyone to sit, but Ryo stays standing. He gets violently electrocuted right on the spot. As Ryo desperately begs for help, Saku speaks up. Only the seats are safe from the current, so he better sit before he fries. Takuma feels incredibly lucky he sat down. Meanwhile, Sutomu realizes Toji is no mere lunatic. As Sutomu grabs a seat, both Ryo and Takuma eagerly ask what is going on. Toji decides to explain the rules of this twisted world. The newcomers are utterly horrified. After hearing the truth, Toji explains this is because every single passenger here is a sinner. Saku notes that Tsutomu and Takuma seem like a pretty normal father and son, but since they came from a detention center, even the nice-looking ones must be dirty underneath. Every single passenger on this bus is a sinner. Tsutomu immediately protests, claiming he lived an honest life, while Takuma says he saves lives as a doctor, while Ryo insists he is a charitable businessman. But then the announcement chimed in, saying the next stop is Nagake Wetlands, ordering everyone to disembark. As they step outside, Saku breathes in the incredibly crisp and fresh air and enjoys this rare moment of peace. Still, he knows some hidden danger must be lurking out there. As they start moving through the thick forest, they hear a beautiful singing voice, but Saku immediately senses that something is terribly off with a voice like that in these wild mountains. Toji warns the group to keep their guard up, reminding them that this place is not a game. Tsutomu flinches as a thick fog rolls in, but Toji remains completely calm, pulling out a rope, telling them to clip it on so they do not get separated. Doing as they are told, they step into the heavy, blinding mist. Suddenly, a loud thud echoes. They turn back and see Ryo collapsed on the ground, his leg bleeding heavily. Saku quickly pulls out some strange medicine, but Ryo hesitates, complaining that the bottle does not even have a label. Saku shrugs, noting there are no doctors here anyway, and quickly presses the medicine onto Ryo's wound. To everyone's absolute shock, the injury heals instantly. Ryo stares in total disbelief, while Tsutomu and Takuma are completely astonished. Toji, completely unfazed, tells them that since Ryo is already healed, they must keep moving. They continue their exhausting trek, stopping only for a quick bite, but it seems endless. The newcomers are running on empty, and Ryo ends up tripping again. This time, he spots a tattered piece of cloth hanging from a branch and starts screaming hysterically about ghosts. The others just roll their eyes, telling him to quit talking nonsense. There are no ghosts in broad daylight, but Ryo insists they have passed this exact spot before. This is where he tripped. Right here. Hearing this, Saku and Toji finally realize they are walking in circles. They are trapped in a loop. They need to mark the path to survive. Suddenly, Toji grabs Ryo and forcefully rips his expensive blazer right off. Ryo panics instantly, screaming that the jacket costs 16 million yen. Toji shreds it without hesitation, kicking Ryo away and barking a harsh truth. His life better be worth more than 16 million yen. They will use the shreds as markers. They drop pieces along the trail. Still, Ryo keeps crying over his ruined clothes. Saku sighs, muttering that for a guy like Ryo, fashion comes before survival. They tie the colorful rags to branches as they push deeper into the fog. The newcomers complain constantly, dragging their feet and stopping to rest. They claim they are exhausted. Saku spots Toji checking his supplies. Toji warns that they simply cannot afford to stop moving now. But the spoiled kids demand food. Toji ignores their whining and keeps moving. A strange, sweet melody echoes through the thick fog. It draws them forward, leading them right to a secluded little village. Ryo and Takuma cannot stop praising the beautiful, angelic voice as they approach the gates. A mysterious girl named Haruka stands waiting. She tells them they are safe here, especially since they have all escaped into the eerie back world together. Saku and Toji instantly sense danger, but the starving Tsutomu immediately begs Haruka for food. While Ryo and Takuma drool over her looks, they eagerly thank her. The fools follow her straight into the village. Saku tries to warn them. He knows how easily newcomers fall for the illusions of this twisted world. Their guard is down, but once they realize there is no real survival, food or water, these weaklings will betray them. Still, if he and Toji follow, they might keep the situation under control. Toji clearly thinks the exact same thing. They step past the gates. Inside, the place looks completely peaceful and normal. They are welcomed with an unbelievably massive feast. It is a dream come true. The three greedy newcomers stuff their faces, but Toji and Saku remain cautious. They do not touch a single bite. Haruka notices, asking if something is wrong. Toji calmly lies, saying they are simply too exhausted to eat right now. Haruka smiles warmly. Rooms are already prepared for weary travelers, she tells them. Toji immediately excuses himself, heading upstairs. Saku closely follows. He quietly asks if it is really okay to abandon the others. Toji coldly replies they can catch the bus once those idiots get wiped out. Saku silently agrees and walks off. Meanwhile, back at the table, Ryo keeps drooling over Haruka's beauty and lovely voice. This highly irritates Takuma. He warns him to stop drooling over a young girl. The insult hits a nerve. Ryo snaps. Soon they are brawling like wild animals. Sutamu tries to stop it. They completely ignore him. Haruka simply watches, smiling with chilling amusement. She loves the chaos. Sutamu angrily confronts her for encouraging this madness. But Haruka calmly explains that this is their custom when two men fight. Over a woman, the winner claims her hand. The brutal brawl quickly intensifies. Sutamu suddenly pins Ryo, shouting for Takuma to end it. Takuma lands a devastating blow. A savage punch lands right on Ryo's face. Down he goes, but Ryo, bloodied and furious, grabs a heavy plate off the table, charges forward, and smashes it directly into Takuma's head. Down, blood gushes everywhere as Takuma collapses. Lifelessly, Haruka steps forward, gently wiping the blood and sweat off. Ryo's face smiling serenely as she declares that from today onward, he is her husband. Sudu breaks down, crying for his son as Haruka calmly leads Ryo away. Luckily, Takuma opens his eyes, making his father Sudu genuinely happy. While Saku explains that he patched him up, but Toji warns that every woman in this dark world is out to kill them. Takuma gets up, telling Toji not to badmouth Haruka, but the bald man just calls him an absolute idiot. Sudu tells his son to calm down, while Saku tells Toji to cut him some slack. Since the kid just got brutally rejected, since Ryo followed Haruka, they decide to find him. Toji mutters that it would have saved them trouble if that woman had just finished Takuma off. Surprisingly, even Saku agrees, thinking that keeping him half alive is just annoying since they will have to drag him to the bus anyway. They leave the room and head back into the courtyard, where a group of women are cleaning up. Saku and Toji plaster on their friendliest faces as they ask about Ryo, but the women barely spare them a glance, coldly replying that they were not paying attention. A missing person is always a pain. So Toji curses the lovesick idiot. Seriously, who does that? Night falls, the moon hanging high. But the group keeps searching, asking the whole village about Ryo. They finally regroup to report zero clues, nothing. Sudu and Takuma immediately suggest just leaving Ryo behind. Since he is a loose cannon who even punches his own teammates, Toji calls them idiots, while Saku explains the bus will not leave unless all survivors are fully accounted for. The real issue is not knowing if Ryo is alive or dead. The father and son finally get it. He has to die, or they find him dies right here. Toji sarcastically praises them for actually using their brains. Saku suggests shifting their strategy, saying the only option left now is to track down Haruka instead. Takuma and Sudu feel a tiny spark of joy when they realize Ryo threw his life away for a monster. Saku quickly tells them to get to work if they are so happy. Takuma suddenly realizes they want to use him as bait, and Sudu quickly blocks his path, refusing to let his son do something so dangerous. Saku has no choice. He looks at Toji. The bald giant grabs Takuma and yanks him right off the ground while Sudu flails around, begging him not to touch his son. Toji just flashes a massive, terrifying fist. That does it. Help out. Toji drops him back onto the dirt and tells him to get moving. Sudu helps his son up. Later that night, a thick, creepy fog rolls over the entire village as Takuma knocks on Haruka's door. She tells him to enter, but he glances back at his crew before stepping inside. The sight of Haruka waiting there leaves him Completely spellbound, and he awkwardly offers her a small bouquet. Haruka gladly takes the flowers with delight, snips the stems, and carefully pins them in her hair. Takuma is totally mesmerized by her looks, reaching out to hold her hand like a complete fool. Watching from outside, Toji and Saku facepalm as he completely forgets his actual job. After being blinded by her, Haruka softly confesses that she likes Takuma so much that she could literally eat him alive. Suddenly, her face twists back into that monstrous form. Revealing her monster form as she sinks her teeth into his shoulder, Takuma shoves her back. As reality hits, he starts shaking violently, screaming for her to stay away. Then he passes out on the spot. Outside, Tsutomu panics and begs the others to save Takuma, but Toji explains they need to watch and learn her game first. Charging in now would ruin the plan. Suddenly, Saku yells a warning just in time. For them to take cover, a massive explosion erupts as a long monster bursts out. From the room, Saku glares through the smoke, realizing the beast has grabbed Takuma, and begins chasing it, but his path is blocked by a group of villagers. Brandishing blazing torches, these creepy locals begin to close in on them. Completely surrounding the three, Tsutomu panics, totally lost and unable to comprehend what is happening, prompting Toji to snap at him. Saku steps in to explain that this crowd wants them dead. These villagers are actually monsters in disguise. Toji digs through his bag and asks Tsutomu if he knows how to shoot. Tsutomu questions why they need a weapon, but Saku says he can handle it. Toji taught him how to shoot. Then, Toji tells Tsutomu that the only thing he is good for is throwing bombs, so he gives a quick demonstration. He chucks a bomb at the villagers, blasting them away in all directions. Tsutomu breaks down in tears, screaming it is hopeless, but Toji snaps at him to shut his mouth if he wants to live. Suddenly, Tsutomu starts barfing from the gruesome sight of severed monster limbs scattered around him. His horror peaks when he looks down at his own vomit. Saku coldly points out that it was their lunch. Tsutomu realizes that their delicious meal earlier was just disgusting trash crawling with insects, and the sweet wine Haruka poured was actually dirty sewer water. Choking with disgust, he grabs his throat, but Toji grabs him, refusing to let a useless coward drag them down. Together, they unleash a hail of bullets and explosives to blow them up, but the monsters just crawl back up like zombies, ready for another round. Saku and Toji shoot endlessly until their guns click empty. Completely fed up, Toji grabs the crying Tsutomu and throws him to the monsters. Talk about a brutal betrayal. To use him as bait, while the beasts swarm Tsutomu, Toji just runs, shouting at Saku to snap out of it and move. Saku steels himself, reminding his conscience that this bus only carries dangerous, high-level criminals. Even the ones who look innocent are monsters back home. They deserve no sympathy. The pair dashes into the deep woods, completely swallowed by the pitch black night. No flashlights allowed, that would only attract the monsters. Toji claims first priority on their limited medicine since he is the leader, and starts digging through his pack. Saku only has a minor scratch on his hand, but the burning pain is intense, definitely from some kind of venom. He knows Toji has similar injuries and has already hogged most of the supply. Predictably, there is barely anything left to treat them. When Toji asks how Saku is, Saku lies, calling it a simple scratch, and quickly bandages it. Toji grunts that Saku has grown a spine, but warns him if he slows down, he is next. Saku asks to be spared, pointing out he is still highly useful. Toji coldly reminds him that he needs to stay useful if he wants to survive. The two push deeper into the forest, but there is still no trace of the others. He realizes their food ran out ages ago. At this rate, Toji will probably target him next. Quietly, he slides out his dagger, ready to strike, but before he can move, both of them slip on the dark slope and tumble down to the bottom. Saku dislocates his shoulder and gets pretty banged up, but he still forces himself to stand, completely unfazed by the pain. He grabs his fallen dagger from the ground and explains his adrenaline output is dozens of times higher than normal. The more pain he feels, the stronger he gets. There is no way someone like Toji can beat him, but as Saku approaches, Toji, something creeps up from the dark. A monster suddenly lunges right at Saku from behind, but he turns, stares coldly, and slices the beast clean in half with just his blade. However, the creature starts reattaching its body and stands right back up. Saku realizes running is their only option. Right now, just then, Toji grabs Saku's leg, begging him not to leave. Saku smirks, no way he would ever abandon their so-called leader. He starts dragging him off, and Toji finally realizes that Saku had this terrifying strength all along. Saku runs through cave, dragging Toji along as all kinds of twisted beasts chase after them. When Toji desperately asks for the plan, Saku just reminds him who begged not to be left behind, because honestly, he makes the perfect bait material. Saku suddenly hears Tikuma's voice echoing from a massive hole nearby. Both Tikuma and Ryo are lying in a giant nest beside a massive egg. Tikuma cries out that he is going to die, but Saku warns him to shut up if he does not want to attract monsters. Tikuma screams anyway, so Saku tells him to pipe down, totally annoyed by the rule that everyone must return to the bus. This rule is really getting on his nerves. Saku grabs Toji's bag, but Toji immediately accuses him of stealing. Saku explains that he is only using the rope to pull Tikuma up. They still need him alive for the bus. He casually notes that Toji's attitude completely flipped after realizing his true power. Saku tosses the rope down, telling Tikuma to tie it around his waist. Ryo begs not to be left, but Tikuma stomps on his hand. When Saku asks if anyone else is down there, Tikuma flat out lies. Seriously, this guy has no shame. Nobody. He is halfway up when a monster suddenly attacks, making Tikuma yell. But he barely dodges. The beast is so incredibly elastic that its body stretches all the way up to reach Saku, forcing him to leap back. Tikuma screams for Saku to pull him up. Saku actually helps, but before he can finish, a giant bird attacks, reminding him of Haruka and the other monster villagers. When the bird shrieks, everyone realizes it is the same eerie cry from the forest earlier. Saku anchors the rope to a rock and tells Tikuma to climb up himself. The birds are attacking after all. The useless guy turns pale, horrified at having to do some actual work. Toji yells that they are out of ammo and explosives, drawing his dagger. But it does absolutely nothing against this onslaught. He starts screaming for help. But Saku is too busy fighting off the attacking bird. During the chaos, Saku slips and tumbles over the edge, barely grabbing Tikuma's foot. Instead of helping, Tikuma starts kicking Saku's hand with his free foot. Saku curses. He calls him an ungrateful idiot, but Takuma insists on survival. Saku uses a sudden burst of power to leap high, clinging to the steep slope. Takuma blames him for attracting the monster attacks, but Saku snaps back, telling him to shut up. Suddenly, the bird beasts rush toward a blazing fire shining from Haruka, transforming back into human form. Walking closer, Ryo desperately begs her for any help, but Haruka only glares with absolute disgust and kicks him away without a second thought. Ryo demands to know why, but she coldly says this is pure revenge. Ryo looks completely lost, but his face soon twists in total horror as Haruka sprouts massive wings, her eyes glowing a deep, menacing red. It all started back in a beautiful, peaceful bird sanctuary, where incredibly rare species used to roam free. Humans only visited to snap photos from a safe distance. The old professor explains to his students that this place is home to a highly protected, legendary species, the white-plumed red-crowned bird, also known as the forgotten sorrow bird. His students marvel at its striking beauty, pointing out the ruby gem on its head and a phoenix-like tail exactly like the textbooks described. The professor goes on to warn them that only a third of these creatures remain in existence, surviving entirely within this tiny sanctuary. Among the group, a young couple also tags along to catch a glimpse of them. The boy softly tells his girlfriend to keep quiet so they do not startle the birds, and she whispers in agreement, but despite their quiet steps, the flock suddenly takes flight, not because of the couple, but due to the roar of heavy machinery nearby. The professor and his students immediately panic. This is a protected zone, and the harsh construction noise is a massive violation. They rush toward the workers, trying to warn them that this place is strictly off limits, but the smug foreman just shrugs and tells them to take their complaints to the bosses. He casually mentions President Rowe, the powerful local tycoon who is funding the whole operation. Terrified for the wildlife, the professor contacts the Ecological Protection Association to report the damage, but he is left stunned when they respond with nothing but hollow excuses and silent agreements. Every single attempt he makes to voice his concerns is instantly crushed. They bluntly tell him he cannot fix this on his own. As the line goes dead, the professor's hands shake with absolute anger. The students ask for their next move, and he tells them to snap photos and report the crime. But as they start documenting the scene, the construction workers turn violent and shove them aside. A brawl breaks out, and it is painfully clear the students stand no chance against these brutal thugs. Bruised and completely defeated, they sink into despair. Meanwhile, the young couple secretly takes their pictures, planning to upload them online later to avoid getting directly targeted. Later that day, Rio fiercely scolds the worker who allowed the visitors to take pictures. The terrified man tries to shift the blame onto the old professor, claiming he used underhanded tricks, but Rio ignores his weak excuses. Bowing his head in pure terror, the employee begs for another chance. Rio calmly explains that since the news has already spread too far, someone must take the fall, and that person is going to be him. The worker drops to his knees, weeping, because going to prison for destroying a protected species is a serious crime. But Rio makes a promise. He will care for the man's child. Now, the worker can go to prison quietly. After some hesitation, the desperate worker agrees to take the entire fall. Locked away, he testifies, the president had absolutely nothing to do with it. He begs for a chance to rebuild his life once his sentence is served. Meanwhile, the old professor lies dying in his hospital bed. The news breaks. He shakes with rage. He knows exactly who destroyed his life's work. Then the next announcement hits. It is a fatal blow. Those beautiful white feathered red crown birds are now officially gone forever. Students weep openly. The professor's weak body finally gives out. He passes away in silence, unable to bear the crushing weight of sorrow. They frantically scream for a doctor, but it is far too late for any help. The doctor explains his fragile heart simply could not survive the immense stress. They mourn deeply. The man who caused this tragedy still walks free. Back at headquarters, Rio's secretary reports the old professor's death. He warns that one stubborn student keeps filing formal complaints. Rio demands silence. Silence him immediately. Meanwhile, the forest clearing continues without pause. The loggers whisper that the jailed man was just a scapegoat. Then, one day, two builders notice something strange. They drop everything and run in terror. Two pairs of decaying hands claw up from the shallow dirt. Murder. The double homicide at the construction site is quickly swept under the rug. The dead turn out to be classmate researchers, but this time, a twist. Rio's secretary claims total blame. He insists he acted entirely alone. Meanwhile, Rio relaxes in his penthouse, reading the morning paper. Japan's largest nature-themed park is officially nearing its grand completion. Money rules everything. He laughs, knowing nobody on this earth hates cash. Wealth brings power, which breeds more wealth. Human lives are meaningless sacrifices. But his smug world completely shatters. A vengeful specter blocks his path. It is Haruka. Rio whimpers, begging that he does not want to die. She coldly responds that her friends also wanted to live. He never cared. He butchered their forest, hunting down every single sacred bird for sport. He destroyed their home just to build a legal hunting playground, power play. He pulled the trigger back then, but now she is in total control. Haruka screams for her flock, savage birds swarm, tearing into his flesh. Claw and beak, nearby, Kazuto climbs higher, feeling incredibly relieved. He smiles, the avian monster is too busy eating Ryo to notice him. He was never Ryo's ally, so the birds have no grudge against him. But Saku sneers, monsters do not care about human politics or sides. Kazuto snaps back, shut up, Saku has no right to judge anyone. You are barely hanging on for dear life yourself, and could plummet at any second. Right on cue, Saku's grip slips. Kazuto laughs mockingly at his struggle. Since beasts do not reason, you better climb up faster, loser. He even offers help, provided Saku votes him as the new leader. Kazuto's smirk vanishes. Saku suddenly leaps across the sheer rock face. He scales the wall like flat ground, leaving the coward far behind. Scaling all the way up, Toji watches, floored by Saku's insane physical skills, but awe turns to suspicion when Saku pulls out a small vial of medicine. Toji snaps, lunging forward to snatch it right back. But Saku slips away, he traded his own points for it. The bald guy scowls, no way a weakling has points. But Saku stays ice cold, he fires back. Underestimating allies, it is stupider than misjudging enemies. They are temporary partners, both got poisoned, but Toji used almost all the cure while Saku had his own stash. Still, Toji accuses him of stealing. Saku rolls his eyes, the man is clueless. He reveals he had 50 injury points, spending 10 to call outside, and the rest on weapons and medicine, so he would not be bait. Toji stands frozen. A rookie with 50 points is totally impossible. Suddenly, Saku grabs his collar and yanks him close with a cold stare. Now it is Toji's turn to learn what being bait actually feels like. Toji is shocked by his strength but still swings a punch. Saku catches it effortlessly, throwing him over his shoulder like trash. Toji groans, claiming he is holding back his real power, but Saku just tells him to shut up, it is time to play bait. Toji completely loses it as Saku drags him toward the nest. Kazuto finally climbs up, but the monstrous crows immediately swarm, nipping at his flesh. Saku drags Toji and hurls him straight into the middle of them. The flock swarms him, allowing Saku and Kazuto to escape. Toji screams for help, but the beasts rip him apart. 3 years ago, Toji himself tortured someone just for getting in his way. But his victim refused to break, spitting that every dealer should die. Infuriated, Toji snapped and attacked the man with a jagged dagger. Now karma comes full circle. Watching this, Haruka commands her flock to pursue the survivors. She refuses to let a single human escape her. Saku sprints through the ruins outside as Kazuto frantically struggles to keep up, begging him to slow down and calling Saku their new leader. But the new leader tells him to shut it, looking up. The clear sky fills with those terrifying black wings. Haruka descends, unleashing her swarm to eradicate them. Kazuto tries to plead their innocence. But Saku warns him, you cannot reason with bloodthirsty monsters. Haruka sneers, claiming that human flesh is perfect nourishment to breed her species. As Kazuto panics and bolts, the flock entirely cuts off his escape. He begs Saku for help, but Saku only faces Haruka, blade ready. Steel clashes against razor claws in a blinding flurry. Saku gets cut, but his blade slices Haruka's shoulder. She grunts in shock, realizing this human is unlike any warrior she has ever faced. But he is still just prey, and this world belongs to her kind now. Leaping, she screeches that humanity deserves only absolute, painful extinction. Her claws dig deep into Saku's face, demanding his death. Suddenly, a deafening blast erupts, sending black feathers raining through the air. Saku just blasted her point blank with a gun. She stares back in sheer confusion. Saku calmly explains his only real fear was not having enough firepower. He prepared for ages, using private points to secretly hoard weapons. Now they finally come in handy. He fires again and hurls heavy explosives toward the other birds, blowing them to pieces in a massive, fiery explosion. He rushes out of there and Kazuto scrambles after him, asking where they are going. Saku answers they are heading to the bus, but behind them, the birds rise from the flames. Ordinary weapons can't hurt them here, so Saku sprints toward the bus with everything he has. Kazuto is right behind him, screaming bloody murder. Saku tells him to shut his mouth and just run, but the guy won't stop yapping. Saku promises him they will be perfectly safe once they step on that bus. Still, Kazuto worries. The vehicle might flip over. With the blackbirds closing in, Saku pushes harder. The bus is right there, but suddenly, those massive birds block their path. Saku leaps up to dodge, but Haruka appears right before him. Hellbent on destroying all of humanity, Saku glares at her coldly as she steps closer and strikes. He leaps back, pulling out a hidden blade from behind her and slashes her head clean off. Her body drops instantly to the ground while her severed head rolls away. Yet Haruka smugly laughs, saying she cannot be killed. Saku disagrees, driving his sword straight into her forehead. She shrieks as blood sprays everywhere, but Saku does not stop. The birds swarming Kazuto dissolve into feathers the moment Saku finishes her off. Kazuto watches the whole thing and tries to act friendly, asking about the sword. Saku explains he traded for it using the system's hidden collection. Kazuto realizes Toji never mentioned this and declares that Saku is the boss now, since he needs someone to explain the rules of this terrifying back world. But when Saku ignores him, Kazuto gets completely pissed off by his silent treatment. Frustrated, he kicks Haruka's lifeless, severed head, but the moment they step onto the bus, an automated broadcast warns them to take their seats quickly because the bus is departing. Suddenly, Kazuto realizes his father is not on board. He begins slamming the windows, but Saku explains the bus only departs once every single survivor has boarded. Kazuto slowly connects the dots. His father is dead. Saku bluntly tells him those monsters tore him to pieces. Kazuto loses his mind, screaming that they lived honest lives and deserved better. But here is the crazy part. Saku knows everyone chosen for this bus committed terrible crimes, including himself. Suddenly, strange black smoke begins creeping inside the vehicle. The moment Saku spots it, he warns Kazuto that this is the penalty for not sitting down. Suddenly, a shadow grabs Kazuto's neck and chokes him, slamming him violently into a seat. He hits it hard, while Saku explains that disobeying the announcements comes with a brutal price. Kazuto starts sobbing, weeping that he is a doctor who saves lives and deserves better. But Saku completely ignores him. Soon, a glowing system screen appears, showing Kazuto has 15 points while Saku has 80. Kazuto thinks it is a total joke to get so little. Saku reminds him all he did was flirt with girls and beg for his life. He should be grateful for 15 points. Kazuto knows he cannot do much with them, so he makes a decision. They point to Saku as their leader, just like Toji, but Saku makes it clear that he refuses the points. Saku will not lead. Kazuto can only grit his teeth at the harsh rejection. Saku receives 66 damage points while Kazuto gets 40, which he immediately trades for food and medicine. The bus announces they are entering a private space viewable only by survivors. Saku quickly stocks up on food, medicine, and weapons, while Kazuto does not have that luxury and can only grab low-grade stuff. All the supplies are packed, every bit. Kazuto is amazed that such a small bag fits everything. Saku explains that backworld bags are like multi-dimensional space. The bus stops. Kazuto yells they are out of this backworld and desperately slams the windows, thinking they can escape now. Saku recalls having the same thought and decides to use Kazuto as a test subject. He figures there is a reason Toji never got off at bus stops. Despite being in this backworld much longer, the atmosphere shifts. It gets eerie. As a dark arm grabs Kazuto by the shoulder, that pitch-black arm tightly grips Kazuto, leaving him absolutely terrified to see a hooded figure standing right behind him. The hooded figure throws him across the seats, making Saku realize that Kazuto cannot move or speak. Saku panics. He fears being severely punished for not stopping Kazuto, but then the hooded figure moves toward him and gestures for him to stay silent, leaving Saku frozen, terrified. Once the figure vanishes, Saku gasps for air. The pressure was heavy. Meanwhile, Kazuto remains completely out cold. The bus announces new passengers as Tu and Haim. Bored, Haim immediately complains she does not want to ride this rundown bus. But Tu explains their driver could not make it due to a landslide and they have waited an entire hour, leaving them with absolutely no choice right now. She complains that this is all Tu's fault for dragging her to a mountain villa. But he quickly promises that he will make it up to her when they get back. He offers her a designer bag, but Haim demands high-quality leather. Tu readily agrees, no problem, but he is suddenly shocked to see that there is no driver. He starts yelling about this creepy self-driving bus, saying that his own company is researching self-driving vehicles, but even they are not ready to run a bus yet. Suddenly, the speakers order them to be seated, startling them both. Saku calmly warns them to sit down or they will regret it. Tu assumes he is threatening them, but Haim warns him not to fight since the bus has started moving and they cannot get off now. The bus interior shifts. It grows pitch black. Tu is completely surprised. While Haim wonders if they entered a dark tunnel, both are shocked to see a blazing sun outside that dyes the world crimson red. Panic strikes as their skin begins to split open. Saku gives one last warning to sit down. Tu quickly grabs Haim and throws her onto a seat. Along with himself, darkness returns and their bleeding skin instantly heals, leaving them wondering if they are haunted. They are shocked when Saku tells them that this bus is headed to the backworld. He explains that everyone on board bears a sin and the backworld chooses them to pay for their crimes. Tu claims to be a respected businessman who constantly donates to charity and Kazuto claims he's completely innocent of any crimes, while Haim insists she's just a minor actress who's never done anything wrong. Saku already knows that everyone lies at first, but reality is different, very different, as the bus finally screeches to a halt. Saku announces they've reached the next stage. The vehicle broadcasts a message welcoming them to the country of jewelry, ordering them to step off and sightsee. Kazuto wakes up clutching his head, groaning that the nightmare is starting all over again. Stepping off, the four find rubies, diamonds and endless sparkling gems, a literal paradise, pure luxury. Kazuto instantly recognizes her, claiming he's seen her dramas and she's even more beautiful in real life. Saku quietly wonders if Kazuto has already forgotten the horrific tragedy of Haruka. Meanwhile, Haim cowers behind Tu, who glares at Kazuto with pure hostility in his eyes. Saku tells them not to waste their breath. As the wealthy couple turns to leave, Kazuto snaps, furious that Tu is acting so high and mighty without even understanding the basic rules. To Saku, however, they are all just useless dead weight. As they march forward, the ground beneath them suddenly gives way, sending everyone plunging down toward a bed of jagged rocks. Saku fires a rope dart midair, aiming to anchor himself to a solid ledge, but Kazuto suddenly grabs his leg, desperately begging for his life. Saku internally groans, thinking that dealing with pathetic cowards is an absolute drag. He tosses a special ball onto the floor, inflating it into a massive trampoline, then kicks Kazuto away to cushion his fall alongside the others. Tu notices a slight cut, while Haim hyperventilates in terror, sobbing that they are doomed. Landing gracefully, Saku demands to know if they have ever stolen gems or engaged in illegal mining. Kazuto stammers that he grew up in the countryside hitting the books, so he's never even held a gemstone. Tu boasts he's rich enough to buy whatever he desires, so stealing or mining is beneath him. Haim chimed in, bragging she gets showered in diamonds from sponsors anyway. Saku ignores the flexing, pressing them on whether they've committed other crimes, but is met with dead silence. Saku knows these fools are nothing but dead weight, but he's decoded a dark, hidden pattern from prior rounds, a mandatory death toll. Someone must die in each trial, if all these weaklings perish. Now, leaving only ruthless survivors to board the next bus, he'll be in serious trouble. Kazuto smiles warmly, thanking Saku, their leader, for saving them. Saku immediately shuts him down, demanding he stop using that annoying title. Tu chuckles at the rejection, but Kazuto snaps back, saying he doesn't care since Tu is slated to die next anyway. Their petty bickering instantly drains Saku's patience. Haim suddenly leans in, gently touching him and asking if he'll protect them. From now on, Saku coldly warns her to back off, flashing a blade concealed inside his sleeve, explaining that anyone standing behind him is marked as a threat. Haim quickly backs away, promising him massive wealth once they escape back to reality. She desperately begs him to keep her and Tu safe at all costs. When Saku refuses, she shamelessly offers her own body, pulling his hand directly toward her chest. Saku immediately shoves her away, leaving Haim utterly stunned by his rejection. Watching him walk away, she fumes, cursing him for acting so incredibly detached. Suddenly, razor-sharp crystals break away from the cavern roof, raining down like deadly spears. Saku reacts instantly, dodging the crystal shower along with the others, but the trampoline. The snapped rope sends them plunging. Everyone hits the ground safely since the drop is fairly short. They escape real harm, but soon realize Saku is nowhere to be found. Haim tells them it is useless to hope, since they can never afford his help. No amount of gold can buy Saku. Tu is shocked that such a person even exists. A man money cannot buy seems impossible to Tu, but Kazuto reminds them of their reality. Survival is not guaranteed, making empty promises of wealth completely useless in this place. Kazuto is confident they will survive, so he stops arguing and searches for Saku. He searches for the kid, bitterly wondering if Saku has already abandoned them. Instead of Saku, he only finds terrifying gray monsters creeping from the shadows. Cornered, Kazuto screams for Saku, but no savior appears as they are captured. Watching from hiding, Saku is glad he ran right after hitting the ground. Otherwise, he would be trapped too. He is shocked they surrendered so easily. Those useless tagalongs folded instantly. Soon, the gray guards drag the captives away. They are brought into a grand hall before a massive pink monster. Tu tries to act tough, but Kazuto warns him that monsters do not care. Tu and Haim demand to know who the beast is, but Kazuto tells them to behave. One wrong word could mean death. The pink beast formally welcomes them to the country. Tu snaps back, pointing out that being bound is hardly a warm reception. Amused, the monster offers a proper welcome if they can solve his riddle. Brandishing a crescent blade, the beast asks what could be lighter than a jewel. Something so light that it tilts the scale upward. Haim stammers, unable to understand. Tu demands the creature speak plainly, but Kazuto urges them both to focus. The situation is deadly serious as the gray guards suddenly step closer with weapons. Tu and Kazuto finally realize that this pink beast is not playing games. They are in real danger. The monster menacingly demands the riddle's answer. He presses the cold blade against Haim's neck, forcing her to answer first. Trembling, she whimpers that she does not know, and blood begins to trickle down. Tu panics, realizing Haim will die, as Kazuto desperately racks his brain. Kazuto scrambles for the solution, but time is up. The beast asks her again. When she remains silent, he severs her head with a single, swift stroke. Tu stands frozen, completely paralyzed with horror that Haim is dead. Kazuto grimly reminds him that this is why he warned everyone to stay sharp. Arrogance gets you killed in this twisted realm. Now, the beast turns toward Tu. He demands the answer from Tu next. Saku watches quietly, preparing to intervene. With one death already checked off, the hidden rules of this stage are active. Saku confidently steps out of the shadows, announcing that he knows the answer. The pink monster grins, amused by the young boy's sudden, fearless confidence. Saku claims he knows what is lighter than jewel dust and tilts the scale. The survivors hold their breath, desperately waiting to hear what he says next. Saku glances down at Haim's lifeless body, preparing to deliver his final answer. The answer is a sinner's wretched soul. Kazuto and Tu stare in utter disbelief. They think his answer is pure insanity, but the giant beast just stares. Suddenly, the monster breaks into a wide grin, declaring that Saku is correct. The others are stunned. Saku calmly explains the logic behind his answer. This entire stage exists because someone committed a crime involving precious jewels. More than anyone else, he must be the culprit. Right on cue, her soul drifts away. It floats right out of her body, settling quietly on one side of the heavy scale. This breaks physical laws, but the pink creature explains the truth. Her crime instantly turned her soul into the lightest, most wretched thing ever. Tu goes completely pale as the horrifying realization of a jewel crime hits him hard. Before he recovers, a crescent-shaped dagger tugs his neck. Panicked, he begs to know why he is targeted. The monster just smirks. The creature serves up the next riddle, asking what is heavier than jewel dust. Something that instantly makes the left side of the scale drop, never to rise again. Tu blurts out houses, cars, gold, and diamonds. Every single guess is wrong. The weapon inches closer, terrifying him. Tu begs Saku for help. Without hesitation, Saku answers. The answer is a sinner's heavy sins. Instantly, bodies appear. Crushed under massive rubble, these heavy bodies pile onto the scale, tilting it violently. Saku notes it is correct, but he also senses something grim. The scale's sins suggest Tu is not the only target. Talk about a nightmare. This creature knows their dark past. Still, the pink monster spares Tu. Saku keeps staring directly at Tu, making him squirm under the heavy, silent pressure. The monster announces that the three humans are now his honored guests. He orders them to follow, promising they will be treated extremely well. They hesitantly follow behind him, though Kazuto cannot shake off a very dark and nagging memory. He remembers Haruka using this exact hospitality trick. Saku says caution is good. Saku is glad Kazuto is finally being cautious. Meanwhile, Tu lingers, staring at the scales. Kazuto calls out to him. Tu flinches, keeping his thoughts to himself. Later that night, under the high crescent moon, the three men wait. They find themselves seated entirely separately at lavish tables, inside a massive, grand room. None of them have a clue what is happening. Saku warns them to stay quiet. Three dancers enter gracefully, catching the attention of both Tu and Kazuto. They look completely mesmerized. Saku, however, is not amused. He reminds them of Haruka, annoyed they forgot. The women place dishes down. The pink monster eagerly urges them to eat. But looking down at their food, Tu and Kazuto get a massive shock. Their dishes are filled with solid stones. Still, the pink monster loudly insists they eat. Tu awkwardly picks up a fork, trying his best to comply. But the food is solid rock, impossible to bite. The monster's smile fades. He accuses them of refusing his hospitality because they do not want to be friends. In a total rage, he orders his soldiers to surround them as sacrifices. Kazuto demands to know why Saku is not resisting, but Saku stays silent. They are thrown straight into a dark dungeon, where only Kazuto and Tu begin to panic. They tremble with fear. Kazuto begs to know if there is any way out. Saku steps forward, completely calm, and reveals he already has a plan. He brings up the mining site incident, but Tu nervously claims he knows absolutely nothing. Saku points out that Tu is the only one among them connected to minerals. If he answers honestly, maybe he can still be saved from this terrifying, deadly stage. After all, the rule of one death per stage is already complete. Even now, Tu refuses to admit anything, so Kazuto flat out tells him to just drop dead. The two immediately start bickering again, throwing bitter blame and harsh insults back and forth. Watching them, an exhausted Saku sits down and warns them not to waste their energy. After all, they are trapped in a place with absolutely no food or water. Kazuto suddenly realizes he has not had a single drop since boarding the bus. But Tu quickly points out that this twisted place only lets them swallow jewels. Smiling, Kazuto rummages through his bag, pulling out actual food to show off. He explains that survivors can trade points for supplies, while Saku tosses a can to Tu. Saku demands the truth in exchange for the meal, but Tu still plays the victim. So Saku confronts him directly about his illegal jewel dealings. Tu deflects, suggesting the criminal could be anyone, but Saku quickly shuts that down. He points out the scale-used mining equipment, something a regular student cannot access. Kazuto agrees, noting that an ordinary office worker like himself is also completely out. Besides, in the real world, Tu is a famous billionaire frequently seen in the news. Tu begins to tremble, silent, while Saku tells him to think carefully about his answer. This confession is a literal matter of life and death for everyone in the room. Desperate, Tu cracks open the can and starts eating while Saku watches in disgust. Saku only helped him to survive, otherwise he would have left the man to starve. When Tu keeps stalling instead of talking, an impatient Kazuto kicks his food away. Having reached his absolute limit, Saku shoves Tu aside, deciding to use pure force. Terrified, Tu finally cracks, screaming that he will confess everything right now. Saku urges him to make it quick. It is their only ticket out of this hellhole. Tu starts recounting the day of the mine disaster, back when everything seemed perfectly normal. The laborers worked hard under the sweltering heat, dreaming of simple comforts. They laughed about eating sweet, ice-cold watermelon once their brutal shifts finally ended. Many shared their dreams, saving up enough cash to return home and start small shops. One even planned to retire the second his kid graduated from college. But in the shadows, an aggressive manager was furiously pressuring an on-site engineer. Despite the engineer warning that vital safety checks were skipped, the manager pushed forward. He insisted their veteran crew could handle it, recklessly dismissing any chance of danger. Seizing the faulty gear by force, he ignored the engineer trying to contact the boss. Unfortunately, the call never went through, and the unstable machinery triggered a massive blast. The devastating explosion instantly wiped out the workers, and that boss was Tu. Tu admits he missed that crucial, life-saving call because he was busy ignoring it. While Kazuto mocks him for causing dozens of deaths, Saku senses something is off. His gut warns him that this billionaire is lying, and honestly, can we blame him? Suddenly, Saku whirls around as eerie gray figures appear, demanding all non-believers leave. Before the terrified trio can even process the threat, the floor beneath them shakes. The solid stone splits wide open, leaving them with absolutely nowhere to run. They fall into the dark abyss, with Tu screaming for Saku to save him. Crashing hard into deep water, they gasp for air, but Kazuto is already raging. He explodes at Tu, furious that his lies dragged them into this nightmare. Meanwhile, Saku frantically checks his backpack, only to make a horrifying discovery. Their precious food, fresh water, and explosives are completely ruined by the water. Glaring up at the bizarre pink monster, Saku demands to know how they can escape. Free, the monster tells them to figure out why they were brought herein. The first place, Saku knows exactly what must be done. He storms toward Tu and lands a heavy punch, demanding to know if he still refuses to come clean. But Tu, trembling and pale, insists he is a dead man if he talks. Short distance away, Kazuto catches sight of something drifting in the water. Looking closer, his blood runs cold, his own corpse floating there. Lifelessly, Taro freezes, horrified to see her own body there, while Kazuto grabs Saku in shock, but then he catches movement right under the surface. Before anyone can react, Taro screams that something bit her. Bubbles rise in the water and Saku instantly hurls a knife. It strikes something solid and As Kazuto pinches his nose to dive, Saku yanks out a bloated rat. He has never seen anything like it. The creature's body reeks of poison. Suddenly, dozens of red eyes glow from the dark water's edge. More of these. Rats are watching them hungrily. In a heartbeat, they charge. Saku jumps into action, slamming two again about his secrets. Kazuto grabs him too, desperate for answers, but two shrieks that they will just sell him out if he does. One of the rats lunges at Kazuto, knocking him into the water, while another sinks its teeth into Saku's arm. He tears it off, but burning pain spreads rapidly from the bite. The poison is already working, pushing him to his limit. Saku snaps, seizing two and snarling if he really thinks he can survive without spilling the truth. He throws him toward the swarm, but instead of panicking, Two's eyes fly wide in delirium. He starts seeing rubies everywhere. He laughs like a madman, clutching at the glowing gems and babbling that he does not care how many people die. He can buy anyone with these jewels. The rats swarm him, gnawing at his flesh, but he just clutches her severed head and offers her a ruby with a crazed smile. Kazuto stares, realizing Two is completely insane. Saku, however, stays cold, muttering that they still need to get the truth out of him. That is this stage's hidden rule, their only escape. They can't escape until they satisfy it. Kazuto is stunned since the system never mentioned anything like that, but Saku explains it is a trap to bait them. Obviously, it would not be written out openly. He figured it out after seeing that mysterious scale. If his guess is correct, making the sinner atone for his crimes will balance the scale. Kazuto finally connects the dots. There is no way out until that scale is balanced, since Two has gone off the deep end. Saku decides on a different approach. He spends his remaining points to buy a bizarre eyeball from the system. Kazuto stares at it, completely freaked out, demanding to know what the hell it is. Saku replies he traded his points for it, explaining that you can still make exchanges mid-stage if you have got enough. Kazuto grumbles that he does not have nearly that many points, but still wants to know about the creepy object. Saku tells him it is a projector that displays memories. He grabs Two, binding him with a rope and dragging him close. If Two will not talk, they will drag the truth out by force. Saku presses the eerie eyeball against Two's head. A secretary informs Two that after the explosion in the mine, rescue teams have arrived, but no survivors have been found. Not confirmed yet, but Two already has the strategy ready. First, a statement, then an apology, followed by compensation. They will claim they are doing absolutely everything they can to help with rescue efforts. He plans to handle the victims' families himself and lean on Congressman Shuto for the rest. Right after hanging up that friendly call with the congressman, his secretary asks when the compensation will actually be paid. Two's voice instantly goes freezing cold, forcing the stuttering secretary to remind him who ordered the calculation. Two sneers back. Just because they calculated a number and put it on paper does not mean they ever intend to pay a single cent of it. The secretary objects, feeling terrible for the grieving families, but Two tells him to donate his own salary instead. Two calmly lights up a cigar, muttering that those lowlife workers knew exactly what they signed up for. He spits that the company did everything right, but the laborers ignored the rules. They did not follow the manual, so their deaths are on them. The defeated secretary walks out. This dark truth spills directly out of Two's twisted memories. Projected through that unsettling eye, Kazuto calls him a monster for robbing those families. Saku chimes in. The tragedy was so massive that even he remembers hearing about it. Everyone assumed the payouts went through once the news broke. Saku stares hard at Two, asking if he feels any guilt for tearing lives apart. Two stammers out that he truly regrets everything, but Saku is not buying it. He knows Two only regrets getting caught because he is terrified of dying in this nightmare world. If he escaped right now, that fake guilt would vanish instantly. Two desperately begs for help. Saku grabs him by the collar instead, turning him toward the waiting monster. The truth is out. The pink beast nods, and the stone floor beneath their feet suddenly begins to rumble. A massive stone platform rises. Kazuto grins, thinking this is their ticket out of here. Saku keeps his guard up, and honestly, can you blame him? The platform grinds to a halt. Standing before the pink monster, Saku asks what else it wants. The beast points a finger. Leave the sinner behind, it commands. Two panics, screaming that he already confessed to his sins. He begs for a second chance, but Saku cuts him down with a freezing look. Did his victims get a second chance? Did the families he ruined get to start over? The creature wraps its grip around two, telling Saku and Kazuto they are free to go. Once the final ritual concludes, their path opens. They drag two to the altar and toss him down. Two stares at the pile of glittering gems inside and snaps completely. He scoops them up, raving about building another mine to extract even more wealth. Kazuto sighs the man is completely gone, just useless dead weight if they tried to help. Saku watches him in disgust. Even at rock bottom, he is still chasing shiny stones. The absolute definition of greed. Deep down, Kazuto is honestly just relieved. Glad they are leaving this piece of garbage behind, but their relief is cut short. The pink monster hands Saku and Kazuto a heap of gems, offering a grim choice. Either cast your judgment on him or stand to protect him. Kazuto does not hesitate. He steps up to condemn too, while Saku silently accepts that they are all sinners here. Still, some crimes demand payment. They must cast their votes against his black soul. They pelt too with the heavy gems, yet, lost in his delusion, he laughs and cheers. He greedily gathers every stone striking his body until his broken shell finally gives out. The beast turns away, letting them go while two lies buried under the wealth he worshipped. Back on the safety of the bus, Saku and Kazuto claim their stage clear points. Saku quietly asks Kazuto what his original sin was, but Kazuto remains dead silent. He gets offended, claiming he is an elite doctor who saves lives. Right then, the bus stops. Congressman Shuto, Agi, Mayu, and Yumi climb aboard. Kazuto instantly recognizes the famous politician, but Saku knows the nightmare is far from over. Because Shuto is linked to two, according to the game, new passengers are added to the bus. Shuto looks deeply troubled. Agi stays totally calm, while Yumi and Mayu are completely terrified, taking full advantage of the moment. Kazuto confidently promises to protect them, boasting that he already cleared 2 stages. The girls thank him for the info, giving his massive ego an extra boost. Meanwhile, Congressman Shuto starts pounding on the glass, screaming that his political enemies trapped him here on this automated bus because the election is close. Right then, the system issues a sudden warning: quiet, otherwise face a deadly penalty. As the tension builds, Kazuto steps in to shut the politician up before he gets everyone killed, but Shuto shoves him away, fueling Kazuto's rage. The two men lock eyes in a tense, silent standoff while Saku just watches without saying a word. Soon, the bus enters a pitch-black tunnel, and the power cuts out. Suddenly, terrifying, monstrous hands scrape against the windows. Pure nightmare fuel. It scares Shuto half to death. Kazuto points out those looked like dead hands, reminding the older man that his high status means absolutely nothing in this place. Just then, a horrifying monster creeps up right behind Shuto. One glance is enough to make him faint. On the spot, Kazuto shrugs, figuring a passed-out politician is easier to handle. Then a loudmouth. Kazuto notices Saku has been completely silent since the newcomers boarded and asks why, but Saku simply claims there is nothing to discuss. Still, Saku silently analyzes them. The two girls seem a bit manipulative, but they are not a threat. The politician is all talk, meaning he will likely crack first. The only real mystery in the group is Agi. He has not uttered a single word, choosing to just watch everything quietly. When their eyes lock, Saku instantly realizes this guy is anything but ordinary. The vehicle finally screeches to a halt, and as the girls tremble, Kazuto promises they will survive if they stay close. Their current destination is called the Mermaid Village. Kazuto warns them that in this eerie backworld, mermaids are far from friendly. There are actual monsters out there. His bragging actually works, and the terrified girls admit they are completely lost without him. Meanwhile, Saku dumps cold water on Shuto to wake him up, telling him they have reached the next stage, but Shuto refuses to budge, whining that he is too terrified of the danger outside. Saku has zero patience for this dead weight, but they need to sacrifice at least one sinner. A coward like Shuto is the perfect candidate for that, Kazuto suggests. Ditching him here, the system penalty will force him to follow anyway. Saku agrees and they head out, leaving Shuto behind. The politician sighs in deep relief, but then the very ground beneath him begins to violently shake. A rotting, decayed hand bursts from the dirt, sending him into absolute panic. Meanwhile, the rest of the group steps into the village. It is completely dead. Filled with silent, empty houses, Kazuto immediately starts bragging about how he will. Saku and Agi check out the stone buildings, realizing they are built entirely from seaside rocks. Suddenly, Shuto crashes hard into a stone wall Saku is inspecting. He screams in pure terror, claiming that a creepy ghost hand dragged him all the way here. Right after that, the wall cracks open and a foul liquid seeps through. While it looks disgusting, it does not seem harmful, so the group decides to ignore it. Kazuto steps up, reminding them they need shelter before nightfall. He warns everyone that in the previous stage, monsters only spawned after the sun set. Saku gladly lets him take charge, let the arrogant know-it-all lead. They quickly spot an empty shed and slip inside to set up camp. Kazuto decides to split the team into two groups, sending one for firewood and one for fishing. Naturally, the girls immediately choose to tag, along with the charismatic Kazuto. This leaves Saku and Agi alone to handle the annoying task of finding firewood. Agi notes that finding wood to burn in this humidity is nearly impossible. Saku simply agrees, choosing to play along while trying to figure out what Agi is hiding. Kazuto and the girls walk down to the seaside to fish, but out of nowhere, Yumi screams. She shrieks that some creepy creature is pulling on her leg. But it is just a prank, and they start splashing like kids. Mayu sighs heavily, wondering if Yumi ever gets tired of pulling the exact same trick. They keep laughing, having absolutely no idea that a real nightmare is watching them. The water monster lurks nearby, but the trio remains completely unaware. Continuing his fish hunt, Kazuto completely ignores any potential danger around him. He actually manages to catch two fish, making the girls look at him with pure admiration. Since they did absolutely zero work, they quickly beg him for food. Their fun is suddenly cut short when they hear Shuto screaming for his life in the distance. They race back to the shed and run right into Agi and Saku. Kazuto immediately brags about his catch, mockingly asking Saku if they even found a single piece of wood. Agi explains that the heavy humidity made finding dry wood absolutely impossible. Mayu panics about the dark, while Yumi instantly starts scolding the guys. Kazuto acts like the perfect leader, telling the girls to be nice to their teammates. Saku ignores the drama and goes inside to check on Shuto. Shuto is trembling on the floor, yelling that people are covering the walls. But there is absolutely nothing on the stone, leaving everyone to wonder if he is just losing his mind. Agi inspects the stone closely and confirms that everything seems perfectly normal. When Saku asks about Shuto's wild claims, Agi insists the man is just losing his mind. As night falls, Yumi scolds the men again for failing to bring firewood. She bans them from eating, but Kazuto quickly steps in to protect them. He argues that losing teammates means losing their overall chance at survival, so infighting is completely out. The girls quiet down. Saku, however, decides to go back outside. Saku begs them not to skip dinner, promising he will quickly find some dry leaves to burn. He drags Kazuto along, claiming he is too terrified to go alone. Once they leave, Kazuto mockingly asks if Saku really needs his strong protection on a scary night like this. Saku smiles. He says he is just letting Kazuto shine in front of the girls. Kazuto completely buys the lie and thanks him, prompting Saku to laugh at his incredible stupidity. Saku simply pulls out a lighter he secretly traded for earlier. It is going to be way easier than searching for heavy firewood. Saku suggests telling the others Kazuto made the trade, since it will earn him the women's respect. He secretly plans to use this idiot to probe Ag as the fog grows thicker. The fog rapidly thickens, forcing them to head back immediately. As they march forward, two glowing red eyes appear in the dark bushes. Saku senses something and quickly turns. He turns back, but the mysterious eyes vanish. Soon, they safely arrive back at the building. The girls claim they felt anxious without Kazuto, which instantly boosts his fragile ego. He happily shows off his traded lighter. They start a campfire and cook their caught fish. Mayu worries that 3 fish won't be enough to feed all 6 of them. Yumi coldly replies that useless people do not get food. Meanwhile, Ag asks how. They plan to divide the food. Yumi insists only Kazuto and the girls should eat. Nobody else gets a bite, but Ag points out that Saku and Kazuto gathered the leaves. So by her logic, Yumi and Mayu must eat raw fish since they never helped. Yumi desperately begs Kazuto to speak up, but he suggests they should all cooperate instead. He calls everyone teammates and steps toward Shudo, but Ag reminds Kazuto that Shudo is useless, completely worthless. He should only get fitting scraps. Kazuto agrees, tossing 2 raw fish heads right in front of Shudo. Saku realizes Ag fully understands everyone's traits and silently controls the room. He knows Ag is no ordinary survivor, feeling glad that he hid his own strength. Playing weak was smart. Once dinner ends, Kazuto suggests keeping night watch. In pairs, since anything could happen, he quickly pairs himself up with Saku. Meanwhile, Ag pairs up with Shudo, thinking the silent coward is better than someone troublesome. The 2 girls must pair up, complaining loudly and begging Kazuto to join them. But Kazuto explains that he and Saku have worked together from the start. This makes working together easier, especially inside a safe, closed room. In truth, he knows his life is far more important than chasing women. Saku also thinks the idiot is making a smart decision for once. At midnight, everyone falls asleep while the girls keep watch. They are utterly miserable. They think Kazuto is useless. Suddenly, small stones fall from the wall. So Yumi goes to take a look, but as she approaches, an eye peeks out. 2 giant eyes stare back, and believe me, nobody was ready for this horror. Shudo cowers in a corner, while the others stare at the wall in disbelief. Kazuto cowers behind Saku, but Saku looks completely appalled by the creature. He mutters that the eyes are blinking. Suddenly, Ag draws a sharp dagger. Stepping forward to investigate, Ag proves to Saku he has real guts. Suddenly, a system window pops up. Saku triggered it by identifying Ag. Only Saku can see the screen, confirming yet another rule of this bizarre world. The greedy system warns him that checking a companion's identity will cost all his points. Saku is shocked by the high price, but prepares to make the trade anyway. He trades anyway. He can earn points later, but not knowing Ag is risky. Not knowing Ag's true identity is a massive risk, but the lazy system. The interface notifies him of a 1-hour delay. Meanwhile, Ag rushes forward. He lunges at the eyes with his dagger and starts stabbing them mercilessly. The girls cover their noses from a rotten stench, horrified by the monster's shrieks. Shudo faints from terror. Kazuto is also close to passing out. The creature's screams sound like rough sandpaper grinding together, but Ag keeps stabbing. He keeps stabbing the eyes, relentless even as sticky slime begins pouring out. The ooze flows out. Suddenly, a creature crawls from the wall, screaming in pain. The girls pinch their noses in disgust, while Agi kicks the monstrous beast away. He demands answers, pressing his heavy boot right onto the creature's chest. The creature shrieks that he was once human, but Agi shrugs, saying that makes this easy. He stomps directly on its throat. The beast wails in agony, but Agi shows zero mercy. He coldly questions it about the other world, but the creature has no clue. Realizing it knows nothing, Agi concludes it must be native to this world. Next, he demands to know why this self-proclaimed man looks so grotesque. A strange disease made corals and sea parasites grow on them. The infection spread to all the villagers. Agi forces it to reveal more. They eventually hardened, fusing with the walls themselves. Saku and the girls gasp. Discovering the walls are made of living people is horrifying, but Agi remains completely stone cold. He calmly demands to know who did this, forcing the creature to answer. Mermaids, it rasps. Immediately, Agi decapitates the monster with his blade. The severed head drops, revealing a hollow core packed with dry coral. Saku looks on. Saku pities the victim, but Agi retorts that ending his life was a mercy. He freed him from his endless torture. Impressed, the girls look at Agi with admiration. They begin swooning over their savior, making Kazuto grit his teeth in pure jealousy. Saku tells him to give it a rest. He stands no chance against Agi anyway. Kazuto suddenly shrieks that the severed head just twitched, but shrugs it off. He assumes it is his mind playing tricks because the corpse is so repulsive. Later, as they gather around the fire, Agi assigns night watch to the guys. They need to guard the camp so everyone else can sleep and recover energy. Kazuto hates how bossy Agi is, but Saku tells him to shut up and rest. Once the camp falls completely silent, Saku quietly pulls some papers from his bag. He reviews the hidden files on Agi, but a sudden flash projects a vision. A memory materializes. Agi is driving his car up to a massive, secluded mansion. He pulls up to the security gate and punches in his private access code. As the heavy door slides open, a girl's desperate screams echo from inside. She is bound and covered in deep gashes. Agi coldly demands her silence. He promises to slit her throat so quickly that she will not feel anything. When she continues to beg, his gaze drifts toward the rusty torture tools behind him. What follows is an absolute nightmare of sheer terror and blood. Afterward, he moves on. He targets another unsuspecting woman, approaching her with a warm, deceptive smile. Her phone buzzes with a news alert. Another body was discovered near the mountain. The victims were all between 18 and 28, each with missing body parts. Agi gently interrupts, reminding her they are eating and should talk about something nicer. He smoothly transitions, inviting her over for a backyard barbecue this coming weekend. She blushes and happily accepts, but Agi notes that one thing is still missing. When she offers to bring whatever it is, he smiles and says it is her. He wants her there as his hostess. She giggles, saying he is moving too fast. Agi just laughs, telling her he has no intention of letting her escape his grasp. Soon she suffers the same horrific fate, with Agi claiming that terror is the ultimate dessert. The authorities are completely baffled, unable to find even a single clue. Saku watched the footage. He clenches his teeth in disgust. To the outside world, Igi seems charming, capable, and highly successful. But deep down, he is just a thrill-seeking murderer. Saku decides this monster must die and slowly draws his dagger. But right as Saku moves, Igi suddenly wakes up and checks his watch. Realizing he slept for 2.5 hours, he complains about being left asleep. Saku replies that he looked far too peaceful to disturb, but Igi waves it off. He tells Saku to stop worrying, get some rest, and thanks him. Igi lies back down. Saku knows each stage requires a human sacrifice. He wonders if keeping Igi alive as a scapegoat is the smarter play. The next morning, Igi orders the entire group to go fishing. They need to gather food while searching the village, which annoys Kazuto. Kazuto grumbles about Igi playing boss again, but Saku tells him to stop. He tells him to shut up. They walk. Not a single soul is in sight. It makes complete sense if those killer mermaids actually attacked this place. Everyone fled for their lives. Saku enters an empty house and spots movement. A loose rock tumbles over, and he realizes survivors are hiding inside. If Igi finds them, they are dead. Suddenly, a strange melody stops them. It is a woman singing. Shuto immediately starts acting like a total lunatic. The others rush toward the dancing Shuto, but their focus quickly shifts. They stare at the women in the water, who glide slowly toward them. Kazuto drools over their beauty, but the girls suspect something is deeply wrong. They insist these are monsters, and Saku agrees that this setup feels off. The creatures strike bizarre, mocking poses while Kazuto keeps staring. Yumi and Mayu find them average, but Kazuto is completely entranced. He begs them to come ashore and takes a step into the water. Saku grabs his collar just in time, snapping him back with Haruka's name. Kazuto blinks in utter confusion, wondering why he was marching into the waves. Saku pieces it together and tells him to stuff paper into his ears. Saku hates playing babysitter, but hey, a human shield is always useful. Meanwhile, Mayu and Yumi spot fish tails under the water, definitely monsters. Suddenly, a crazed Shuto rushes past them. Saku tries to yell a warning. But Iji stops him. They need a sacrifice anyway, and this lunatic fits perfectly. Shuto dives right into the sea, screaming about seeing beautiful angels. The singing grows deafening as they surround him. One moves in close. She unhinges her massive jaw and bites his head clean off in one chomp. The headless body collapses, and the other beasts tear his remains apart. The girls scream in horror, and Kazuto realizes that was almost him. Saku ducks down, muttering that he really cannot stomach this much gore. Kazuto cluelessly asks if they cleared the stage, but Saku just glares. Iji watches the bloodbath with cold, empty eyes before stepping forward. There is nothing scary about fish that cannot crawl on land. Later on, Kazuto piles up their gathered fruit in the center. Saku explains they must survive on fruit since the sea is heavily guarded. Mayu looks highly uncomfortable, and Yumi immediately complains about the meager rations. Strength to fight, instead, Kazuto snaps at them for complaining when they have nothing before things get worse. Acerty steps in, reminding Kazuto that each stage awards points. Once Kazuto confirms this, Acerty demands a split since everyone is starving, but Kazuto argues they risked their lives for those points. While Saku watches Acerty finally show his true colors, while Kazuto keeps arguing, Acerty grabs and twists his hand, demanding he surrender all the points to avoid getting hurt. Kazuto refuses to back down, still insisting. Those points cost him his life. Tension peaks, but then Saku grabs Acerty's arm to stop the violence. Saku then holds him back, trying to convince him not to harm a teammate, but Acerty immediately snaps back, demanding Saku surrender his own points if he cares so much. Kazuto protests, stunned by the demand. Saku surprisingly agrees to it, leaving Kazuto utterly shocked. Acerty then releases his grip and waits patiently. As Saku opens his status screen, Acerty finds it all suspicious, so Saku explains that you must clear at least one stage to unlock this screen. When the screen appears, it reveals Saku has 0 points. He acts like he cannot spend any points because he lacks abilities, glaring sharply at Kazuto. Kazuto realizes Saku saw this coming and spent his points. Pure luck or a genius move. Acerty definitely isn't buying it. He watches Saku unimpressed, while the girls call him useless. Acerty then demands Kazuto show his screen too. Kazuto resists. Saku urges him to comply. For everyone's sake, Kazuto reluctantly opens the screen, revealing he has 15 points. Acerty instantly takes them to trade for weapons and food. Kazuto protests about his private points being stolen, but Acerty claims it is for the team, pulling out some canned food. Kazuto accuses him of hoarding, and even the girls back him up. Acerty simply shrugs it off, claiming they cannot eat all the food at once. Kazuto keeps pushing back until Acerty draws a knife, forcing Saku to step in and order Kazuto to fetch water, dragging him away forcefully. Once outside, Saku warns Kazuto. Acerty outclasses him in every possible way. Kazuto is offended. Saku tells him to check his own wrist. Saku advises Kazuto to endure this because Acerty is far more trouble than their former leader. The old boss was aggressive but lacked intelligence. Acerty, on the other hand, has been observing everyone from day one. Reading their personalities to gain control, the two women are also trouble. Honestly, this entire squad is a massive pain, with the facts clear. Kazuto starts acting overly friendly, hoping Saku will protect him. Saku reassures the coward that he will keep him alive for now, teaming up is not his style, but survival requires quick adaptation, even if it means partnering with an idiot who trips and spills all the water. Kazuto promises to refill the bucket, but Saku tells him to stop. Back at the well, Saku tries pulling the bucket up, but it gets heavy. Suddenly, a monstrous siren bursts out of the deep well, opening her mouth. Wide to attack, Saku's reflexes kick in, driving a heavy kick right back into the well. Kazuto cannot believe that terrifying thing came out of fresh water, but Saku reminds him that common sense does not apply in this twisted world. Without hesitation, Saku decides to chase down the monster, which has vanished under the water, waiting to ambush them.